Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board to order for Tuesday, May 20th. If you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Rattari, roll call, please.
Okay, this evening, trustees Durant and Truscott are absent and excused. Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard. Ora Jane Kennedy is here from the Library Committee, Mike Springer from Recreation, and John Marks from Zoning Boards of Appeal. And I think that's everyone.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, those items that appear on the consent agenda are items that typically do not require immediate board action. This evening has the approval of the prior meeting minutes of May 6th. We also have received committee reports. I do not believe there's a planning committee report in there, however. Recreation committee report from the liaison, as well as draft minutes from April 15th and May 6th. The road committee report with minutes from April 1st and draft minutes from May 6th. The water production report for April of 2014. Sheriff's report for April. Fire department activity report of April. Also, we have correspondence not requiring board action, a letter of thanks from Upset for our contribution to their cause, as well as the announcement of the payment of the charter's quarterly franchise fee to the township. This evening's consent agenda includes bills payable in the amount of $223,742.95. Are there any items in the consent agenda which the board wishes to remove for further consideration?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Support.
Motion and support to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. The next item on our agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any items on the agenda that the board wishes to add or remove? Clerk Rattari?
I have a few under new business. I'd like to add after the manager's report. I'd like to add the Passport Grant Recreation resolutions. We already approved them, but there was, I think, a sentence that needed to be changed in there. And after consulting with our legal counsel, we have to redo the resolutions again. So, just so they're correct in the minutes. So I would like to add that under the manager's report. I would like to add also the consideration of the Public Works, or the Building and Grounds vehicle. And since we don't have a full board, I would like to remove from the second forum discussion of board policies and procedures.
And that is in the form of a motion.
Yes, that would be in the form of a motion to add and delete that from the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Comment?
I have a question. In reading through this and looking at everything for tonight's meeting and that, and with what we have in front of us, especially with the tax tribunal decision and the effect it can have on us as a township and financial stability for the township and that, I think we need to move the Peter White Public Library millage down below that until we get that considered as to where we're going to go with it and what the financial problems are going to be.
Let me come right back to Ernie. We have a motion and a second to make the changes that Clerk Rattari has recommended, and I want to make sure we get those that dealt with as a motion before we go to yours. If there's any other comment on Clerk Rattari's, otherwise we have a motion and a second to consider the addition of 10I Passport Grant Resolution reapproval, elimination of the forum discussion of 13A, and to add 10J, the Building and Grounds vehicle. All those in favor of those?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Now, Ernie, in the form of a motion, you want to move the Peter White millage renewal from 9B and insert it to 10.
Somewhere after the consideration for the tax tribunal, because I think that's very important for the township, because the financial consideration and future financial decisions that's going to have to be made if something happens at tax tribunal, how much we're going to lose and what we're going to have to do. So I think we have to look further into the future as to where our dollars are going to come from to meet all our needs in that.
So in the form of motion, you want to move it up to, can we move it to unfinished business, Clerk Rattari, and just deal with it then so that we don't have to renumber everything, move it, make it a new 9B and push Peter White Public Library millage renewal to 9C?
You can move it wherever you want.
Ernie, is that
That's
sound
fine, that's
acceptable?
fine.
Just let me know where we're moving it, and I have to be correct for the minutes.
Move it to 9B, move the Peter White Public Library millage renewal down to 9C.
Okay. This will be,
And then all the others will be renumbered after that, but I'm not going through all that.
I'll
Is there a
support,
second on
I'll
that?
support that motion.
We have motion and support. Anybody have discussion on it or no? Seeing none, motion and support to do, move 10A up to 9B, move 9B to 9C, and then renumber the new business accordingly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion and support to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The agenda is approved as amended. Thank you. This will bring us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to make comment may do so at this time. First and last name, please approach the podium, give us your address, and if you kept it to 3 minutes, it would be greatly appreciated.
Mike Springer, 206 Eagles Nest Road. I'm here on behalf of the Recreation Committee to speak on new business, item 10G. And also, we also have with us tonight is Dave Nyberg. He's a co-chair of the Iron Range Roll. And we also have Melissa DeMars, who is from the YMCA. And I'd like to reserve some time for them to comment. And I also have a small presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else wishing to make public comment at this time?
William Davis, 3 Northwoods Lane, and first is a question. I'm not sure if commenting about the Peter White millage comes now or under forum, because I've never been here for one of the forum discussions.
Really, that's your prerogative. When we open up that forum discussion, if we can certainly make room for additional public comments during that forum discussion, but if you want to make your comments now, Bill, that's totally acceptable as well.
I'll just make them now and save time later.
Okay.
Again, I'm coming before the board. This is several times I've been to the board meetings supporting the Peter White Public Library millage. The Peter White, I look at this in several different ways. First of all, the Peter White Public Library, in my mind, is one of the most customer service oriented organizations, either in the business world or in the governmental world. They really seek out opportunities to serve their patrons, and I appreciate that as a taxpayer. Secondly, I think that if I were a family person and looking to buy a house and I had several townships to choose from or areas to choose from, I would look to one that supported a library, not one that didn't. If we became a township that did not support the library, if I were looking at a house, that would be an item that would affect my decision making about buying a home in that location. Thirdly, I think the residents of Marquette Township have exhibited fairly overwhelming support of the Peter White Library millage. I think that if the board were to take action, I understand there's some big budget items coming, but this is an area that last time it was before the ballot, 75% of the people voted for. I can't remember another tax that has been that high with support? Are you going to alienate people because you have dropped that for another tax? Could that cost you support for a future tax measure on the ballot? I think you need to look at all of those aspects when making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Davis, 3 North Woods Lane, and I'm here also to speak for Peter White Library. But I just want to thank you for all that you are doing for us. I understand with the way the tax tribunal decision came down that you're putting in a lot of time and effort to do your best for the people of Marquette Township, and I want to thank you for that. So going on to the library millage renewal, I know that when you're making decisions, you're looking at results. And some results are really, when you look at them, the results are immediate and they're readily apparent. You can see them right away. For example, if you're fixing potholes, that pothole is filled and it's sealed and it's done. You see those results right away. But some other results are not seen as readily. They're just not as apparent. For example, how do you measure the excitement in a toddler's voice when she points to a picture in a book and connects? Or the joy that a first grader feels when he learns to read and understand? Or the moment when a teenager reads a book, maybe on airplanes, and decides, I'm going to be an aeronautical engineer or a pilot? Or the relief that a family feels when they have a family member suffering from depression and they go to Peter White Library's talk on depression and they realize that they're not alone and that there are community resources to support them. Or the sense of community that maybe a lonely, elderly senior citizen feels, goes to Peter White Library and joins a book club or a discussion group or takes a class. So those are all examples of things that, you're not going to see right away, but they can have a lifetime impact on the members of our community. And they're all things that Peter White Library has given us, that they happen there. And so I would like to urge you to get that village for Peter White Library on the November ballot for a period of 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Carlson, Secretary of the Peter White Library Board of Trustees, and I'm glad to be here tonight. I live at 1000 Norway in Marquette. It's been great that Peter White Library and Marquette Township have been able to work together for the last few decades as partners in trying to create a great cultural resource that we have in our greater Marquette area. All of the townships that surround Marquette are also part of this venture. And together, with a great staff and a lot of community support, we've got a fabulous organization. I guess that's why I agreed to serve on the board, because it makes such a huge difference. And it actually makes a huge difference for people in the township. 20,000 items this year have already been checked out by residents of Marquette Township. And that's an average of, 12 or 14, somewhere in that neighborhood of the adults that would be eligible kind of members of Peter White Library. And all of that comes because you have been a tax supporter for Peter White Library. The other townships do that, and the city of Marquette residents do it also, but at like double the rate that the township residents have to pay. And so I want to say that I really appreciate this kind of partnership that we've had, And I'd be happy to talk more during the subsequent discussion that you have about specific kinds of issues on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Move to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to make a comment may do so at this time. Peter?
With all the snow gone right now, you look at the highways and all the garbage that's floating around, so please do not throw anything out of your car. If you see something by your neighborhood, pick it up. So, thank you.
Thanks, Pete. And nothing? Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome the Thomas Theater Group to the township. I attended a movie last Friday and their opening day, and I was quite impressed with the facility. So just glad to have them here and operating, and that's it.
Thanks. I have no comment at this time. Closed board member comment. We'll open up the forum discussion on the Peter White Public Library. By way of opening it up, it was in the packet. The board members were given copies. I had asked Clerk Rattari at the last meeting to provide us with the last several ballot measures in regards to the library millage renewal proposals, and so that I would be able to verify what those look like and what percentage of voters approve the library millage. And they were included in the packet for that reason. Unfortunately, I know Trustee Durant, who made the motion and requested that this was a forum discussion rather than take action at the last meeting, is under the weather and unable to attend today. But I would just like to point out to the board, by way of opening the discussion, that Clerk Rattari provided you with the official results going back from the ballot measures of 1996, 2002, 2006, 2010, and 2012. The percentage of voters who approved that ballot measure starting with 96 was 68%, 66%, 75%, 76%, and 73% of those who bothered to vote approved the measure, showing pretty clear support in my mind for the library millage and the continuance of such. But it is a forum discussion. We won't take any formal actions during the forum discussion. It is on the agenda for board members to have the opportunity to ask and answer, and I appreciate Mr. Carlson here to answer any questions that we may have from a Peter White Public Library board perspective. And with that, we'll open it up to whoever wants to go. Ernie?
Okay, I was on the board when we first started it back in the 90s and that. We went through a lot of it at that time and talked about it and that. So, and I've listened to what everyone said, the mail I got, and people have talked to me from wherever and that. I have no problem with the direction that they're going and what they like about the public library and what it does for the community and everything else. I think it's there. You cannot counteract anything that they say and that. I'm looking at it strictly on the financial end for the township and that, and some people don't like that when I start bringing up financial stuff on the township and that. But that's one reason I wanted to put the millage for the Peter White Library after we talked about the tax tribunal, because that has a great financial problem for the township if we lose that, because I don't know what the future income will be for the township. And being the township only has 10 mills, and that's it. And you can't do anything else but that. And if we lose that, how much dollars are we going to lose now and into the future? Because once we lose it, it isn't just 1 year, it perpetuates all the way into the future. And we have a number of them right now that have done it. We have a number more that are sitting in the wings. And if you look on 41 from the township line going west and looking at both sides of the road, those are potential businesses that could file. what effect is that gonna have on the township as a whole to meet our needs to serve the people in the township, on the basic needs for it, the health and safety of the township and that. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm kind of on both sides of the coin. I know the benefits for the library, but I also know that we have to be very prudent in what we're spending and how we're gonna spend it until we get this thing settled into the next few years and that. Because if we lose it and we go to the next step and we lose it again, what is it the outcome going to be, the financial outcome going to be? How much are we going to lose? And it's not going to be easy because it's coming out of the, can't really say the general fund, but the general fund will be losing the dollars and we have to make that up somewhere. I think at the last meeting, our manager said we're looking at $80,000 for this year and that. What's it going to be next year and the year after as the rest of them come aboard and file? And where are we going to be? So what are we going to lose? What are we going to have to cut to do everything? So those are what I'm concerned with in that. Are we going to have to put a millage on to support roads, which we have now, and that's going off? We have to put a millage on to support security within the township, and what else in that? We don't know because we're limited as to what we can do. So that's where I'm coming from. I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of talk amongst people in the last week, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting when we get down to where we're going to go with it. I just have a gut feeling that we're going to have to start cutting somewhere because there just isn't going to be the money coming in. And where do we cut? And we go back to the survey that the people did a number of years ago. One thing was the roads, maintenance of roads and everything else. That's number one. And if you look at the roads out there right now, they are a catastrophe. There is no money, and the county road commission says they don't have money to do anything with it. So it's going to have to come out of our budget somehow. If not, we're going to have to go to the people and ask them what we're going to do. So the decision's going to have to be made by the people. Where are you going to spend your money? What do you think is best? If you can't get to the library, why do you need a library? Those are the things you have to think of in that. So it's a lot of different things you have to consider. So I've had my 2 cents with.
Who else?
Pete? I gotta agree with Ernie. The library has been a very big part of my life, because being from a family of 9, that was our only research when we went to school. We didn't have a lot of books, or we didn't have computers at home, so it's very important that we have it. And I am in favor of supporting the library. But we do have to think, just like if your own household, you have to think of what you have, what you don't have, what your expenses coming. And this tax drive, you couldn't have came at a worse time. The roads are so bad, the tax, then you start cutting taxes. So we have to look at it. Are we in favor of the library? Yeah, we want to support the library. At what point or something like that. But right now, I guess I agree with Ernie. We have to look at it. Not saying what we have to do about it, but we have to at least examine it, do our due diligence, and consider anything and everything. So, thank you.
Dan?
At the last meeting, I asked for staff if we can come up with some kind of a plan of how they were going to handle the possibility of this loss of revenue. It hasn't. I know that we lost, obviously, the Court of Appeals, but we haven't lost, if we go to the Supreme Court yet. We haven't seen all of the people that are going to be coming in asking for adjustments on their taxes. Again, like I said, I would like to see, it's obvious we would have to cut, but I would like to see what a plan, right now, what plan we are looking at in that. As to the Peter White Public Library, I'm wholly in favor of the Peter White Public Library. I believe it's up to the citizens to decide what, I think the citizens should know one way or another that we are hurting for money here. I know it's not an ideal situation, but perhaps maybe only a 1-year extension on the millage, so we know in a year exactly where we stand money-wise, whether we can continue on with it or not. I don't see a 1-year agreement, maybe even a 2-year, but I think I'd feel safer with a 1-year at least until we know exactly where we stand with everything else that's going on right now. I think we can survive a one-year millage for the library without too much of a problem.
Clerk Rattari?
I agree with Trustee Pompo and the rest of my board members. We're very supportive of the library. I'm supportive of the library. I would not agree with 1 year because we do not have an election next year. And so that would be an extra $4,000 to $5,000 expenditure, and that wouldn't make sense to me. So I would be in favor of extending it for 2 years. 2 years would be fine. We'd know where we're at after 2 years. We would not hinder a future board's budget by not going past 2 years. And everyone gets what they want. I mean, 2 years is a good number. We know where we're at after 2 years. And I have to agree, it's not financially prudent for us to go long-term because we don't know what's going to happen with the tax tribunal or other factors. So 2 years is not a bad number. Everyone gets what they would like. And if things change, we got 2016, we can work in that year on that. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Clerk Rattari. I will open it up for any members of the audience. If you want to participate in the forum discussion, it's certainly available. If there's anything else you'd like to add, or if you have questions or comments for the board, we would certainly entertain those. So, going once, please. Absolutely. The volume won't pick it up unless you ask it at the podium.
Again, I'm William Davis from 3 Northwood Lane. Ernie, you mentioned at the last board meeting and this board meeting the 10 mil limit. Does the library millage count against that 10 mil?
It's my understanding it does.
I don't think it does. Randy, do you know the definitive answer?
The definitive answer is we have 5 mills, not 10. We only have 10 if the voters vote in the extra 5.
Yeah,
So that's not a given.
The 10 mil limit is what Ernie talked
My understanding, and I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is that the library millage is not part of that 10 mills. It's an extra voted millage like the fire department assessment is.
Okay, thank you.
That's my understanding, but again, that's not a legal opinion.
That's
It
what I
was my
thought it was.
understanding it was part of the 10.
I think we had, a couple years ago, I wanted to get this question answered, and it was, I think, and it may have come from Municipal Council Zappa, but that it was not a part of the 10 mills. Again, we have 5 mills, and we can ask for an additional 5 mills with voter approval, but the library millage is a separate millage that is not inside of that 10 mil cap.
Yeah, but I think where Treasurer Johnson was going is that if that 1 mil is there, it's not available for the voters to give back to us, basically, I think it was where he was headed. It wasn't necessarily that we couldn't get it, but it's another decision point on the part of the voters.
Go ahead, Mr. Carlson. No, that's a good clarifying question, Mr. Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, David Carlson again. Sort of as a political scientist speaking, I'm retired, but I think I can still speak to some of this discussion. I am 1,000% behind you in appealing this case going forward. This is the most crazy, topsy-turvy thing in the state of Michigan. And I guess I would then say that if you lose, this is going to destroy the tax structure in the state of Michigan, okay? You can count on that. It's going to create a tremendous upheaval throughout the state because these people are not going to just stop here. They're going to go after it every place. And then we're going to have everybody fighting for every way to try to reduce their tax structure from some kind of crazy idea that they're pushing forward at this point in time. And the state is going to have to readjust how we fund government. Okay, it's just going to have to happen because governmental entities all across the state of Michigan will be in the same dire straits that you're in because property taxes are what drive the tax structure in the state of Michigan. Now, we're a bit unusual. I think you probably know that compared to other states. Most states have a bigger variation in the kinds of taxes that they have. And if this court manages to throw out the one that we have, they're going to have to rebuild it in Lansing, among other things. And I guess that also then gets to the whole question that you were just discussing and I think resolving, and that is that the Peter White millage stands separately from the requirements that the township faces in the amount of taxes that you can collect and so forth. Clearly, people might say, you know, there's a limit to how much, you know, my taxes will be or what I'm willing to support. And that's true from your perspective. Can you get 10 mills out of people or 5 mills, whatever the limit might be? And at some point, the taxpayers are going to have to, you know, probably say, boy, we can't do everything. But I think you are in a position to recognize, as the numbers that you just recited earlier, and that is that the citizens in the township have been really strong supporters of the library. They make good use of the library, and people who don't have library cards can come to all of the public events that are in Peter White Library, and thousands of them do all the time. And so it's really something that the citizens, my guess is, would want to try to see as part of this funded community that we have collectively in Marquette County or in the state of Michigan. And at some point, this whole nonsense is going to have to get resolved. I cannot believe what legal arguments can do in arguing about what fits on the head of a pin and so forth. It's a disaster for the state, not just for this township, because pretty soon they're going to do this all over the entire state, and really crazy, innovative arguments are going to be put forward, so there's going to be nothing left to tax. I mean, they're going to laugh. If they win, they're going to laugh that they've agreed to, what is it, a 30% number? Why can't they argue for 0? I mean, that's what it is in Detroit, where they've had malls. You can see these kinds of things everywhere. It will just allow tax. Anybody that pays taxes will be able to hire an attorney, and they can find grounds then, I guess, to get rid of the tax structure. And I've lived in other states, so I've seen how other states have changed their taxing structures around. And eventually, sanity prevails. And you start deciding, what do we have to sustain a public sector in our society? And so, unfortunately, you're on the leading edge of this tsunami, if that's what actually hits us. On the other hand, I wish you absolutely the best of luck in getting the right kinds of arguments going forward to the courts, because somebody's going to have to find a way to stop that, or there will be this kind of chaos that will come into play. After all the chaos is over, I think there's still going to be people who want public support for Peter White Library, because it's a great community asset. We didn't get to have a national award for one of the finest libraries in the whole United States without actually providing things that the citizens of Marquette County really love to have. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Kathy Peters, 600 Brickyard Road. I can't add anything to what Dave just said, but it did occur to me that if you're making going to put the Peter White Library on a sort of hold, which I would be very opposed to, are you also going to put on hold any decisions in the township about big box store buildings? I think it would be only fair to the township not to take on big box stores until this kind of thing is resolved.
Thanks, Kathy.
John Marks, 155 Hidden Springs. I know that the board has agonized over this year after year, and I don't want to, it's the board's decision, it's not individuals' decision. But one comment that was made earlier was support for a possibly given the financial jeopardy that the township faces, was that a one-year extension might possibly be in order. The rebuttal to that was that 1 year from now, we wouldn't have another election to put it on. But the comment, I'd like to hear it again from Clerk. What is the cost of an election if we paid for one?
It's going to be about $4,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
A special election.
So $4,000 to $5,000. Now, let's hear it again. What is the amount that the township pays? What is the amount that the township would be putting to the public library? It's around $230,000. Isn't that correct? Give or take a couple thousand. So if the spirit is that perhaps a one-year extension might be in order, knowing that you're going to have to pay for a special election, 4,000 or 5,000, as opposed to 230,000, I think paying for a special election, if that's what it costs to achieve your goal of 1 year, is in order. And I hope folks would think about it, and those who think that a one-year extension is more the proper thing to make at this time, I would hope you would agree that it's worth the paying of a special election to get rid of the jeopardy that you might be facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Anyone else? Clerk Rattari?
I guess my only rebuttal to that and my recommendation would be in special elections, your turnouts are very low, especially in an off year. If we went 2 years out, that'd be the next presidential election, and you'd get the majority of the folks probably voting. Last time, we had 70% of the whole township vote, which was a good number of about 3,000 voters. In small elections, I'm lucky to get 20%, and that's not much really. My recommendation would be to have it during a regular year, because that's when you have the most folks vote, and it's going to be on the November ballot, because now I believe the library has changed their, if I understand right, their budget year, and they would rather have the vote in November. That's what I had gotten from the director. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Randy. Go ahead, Ernie.
Just on the 2013 settlement to the library, it was $208,792 is what we sent over to the library for 2013. Now, there are some delinquent taxes and everything else that's going to come in afterwards, and some of the other, so there isn't going to be that much differential in that too. So,
A couple things will happen. One is the adjustment with should we lose the big box appeal, or if the board chooses not to pursue the Supreme Court option, and we know what we're going to lose, the impact to the township, is considerable. Just with the ones that stand right now, $80,000 in operating expenses for the year. Operating revenue has gone overnight. Another $40,000 for fire services, fire prevention and protection. It's a big impact to a small township. Mr. Carlson's right in that eventually, and I know you're here for another reason, but as a governor's representative sitting in the audience, this isn't the first meeting he's heard this at. He's been in attendance of others. They continue to hear it. I think they're starting to get the idea that it's not just Marquette Township that's impacted, it's a statewide issue. But that having been said, if you look at, that kind of money to a small township has a huge impact. And so we are forced to then make decisions moving forward during the budget cycles. And the first thing you're going to do is you have to eliminate non-essential, or what would be deemed non-essential services for us out of operating expenses, becomes like the money that we invest in recreational assets. Unfortunately, those are some of the things that help you make who you are. I mean, one of the things that Marquette Township is known for is that we have great recreational assets. We have great green space. We have wonderful places to ride your bike, walk, fish, you name it. And we're certainly big on silent sports for the winter. We have to start cutting funding for those because we have to, first provide for residents. Would we be faced with that? I don't know. It depends on how far this scenario goes before we'd have to make some of those very real decisions, and they would be hard decisions to make because they have a direct impact on how you retain and stay attractive for new residents. We want folks to want to, live, work, play, and relocate into Marquette Township. The big box stores are a blessing and a curse. They allow us a lot of things, including like the library funding. It's been pointed out many times that $208,000 goes to Peter White Public Library. It's a sizable portion of their budget from Marquette Township. Well, a lot of that comes because we have the retail segment out here, and so it's not all coming from residents. It's a lot of that goes in, but if they're reduced to a third, it certainly reduces Peter White Public Library's budget. It reduces the school aid tax. It reduces our operating millage. It reduces everything. But on the other hand, remember that this township has continued to prosper and grow. I mean, we went up 18% in census in 10 years. We go up between 7 and 8% in taxable value every year and have for a dozen years, and I don't anticipate that will stop anytime soon. I think we'll continue to grow and prosper. There's a reason a lot of people want to locate in Marquette Township. It's cool here. We have a great spot, and people know that. We have a great spot for retail. We have a great spot for a lot of things, but there are some uncertainties that face us. It's what comes out with the Supreme Court. Will they agree to hear it? And if they do, will they rule in our favor? But we also have some what ifs on the other hand. What if Marquette General decides to locate into Marquette Township and increases our taxable value by $150 million a year? Would be a huge boon to the community, and suddenly things wouldn't look as dire. We should probably hear that opinion probably sometime in the next 4 weeks or so about where they're going to choose to relocate. So there's a lot of uncertainty as we make this decision, but we have to ask ourselves as a board, we clearly have resident support, in my opinion, somewhere between 2/3 to 3/4 of all residents continually and every time they're asked support the continuing millage to Peter White Public Library. Will we know more in 2 years? Potentially. But when I look at the track record of where we've been, we went through a pretty tough recession over the last few years, and even through all the recession, support for Peter White Public Library didn't diminish. In fact, it increased during those election cycles, and it tells you how people feel, even with uncertainty, when people start to tighten up and not go to the movies or eat out or whatever. When they get asked a question every couple years on the ballot, will you continue to support a millage to Peter White Public Library? They overwhelmingly say yes, yes, yes. If we had to go to folks because worst case scenario and ask them for an additional $1 million for operating expenses so we can continue to operate like we have been, is there a break-even point where somebody says, well, I don't know if I can keep supporting the library or because I want to make sure my garbage gets picked up or something. I mean, perhaps there is, but I don't think we're there. I just don't think we're there right now. I think that we'll continue to have economic prosperity. I think people will continue to support the Peter White Public Library. And whether it's 2 years or 4 years, I think if you do it in 2 years, we'll have the same conversation. We'll put it on the ballot in 2 years, and somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of the residents will turn out and once again support the millage for the Peter White Public Library. And that's my 2 cents. So Forum discussion, we can't take any formal discussions. If there's anything anybody would care to add, we can certainly consider it. If not, we'll close the forum discussion and move on.
Just one comment on any of the new construction that we're talking about this year. We will not see any taxes to this township for any entities until 2016. It takes that long a time to rotate through everything. So if you look at the new movie theater that came aboard, we won't see any tax revenue really until 2016 on that. So that's some of the things you have to plan ahead on that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, Dave Nyberg, Director, Governor Rick Snyder's Northern Michigan office. This was brought up by the supervisor. Just wanted to, thank the board for the forum and a fortuitous opportunity to listen to this dialogue. It's really educational and certainly consistent with a lot of the feedback that the governor's office has been receiving on this issue, particularly from Marquette Township and Brighting Township, not surprisingly. As you all know, this is a legal matter that occurs outside the forum of executive branch of state government. Gentleman in the audience brought up that policy considerations may change that in the future. But for the good of the record, I wanted to make sure that I did thank the board and thank public comment on that matter because it is important dialogue. It is not a decision point for the governor or the executive branch of state government at this point. There's been some consideration in the legislative branch of government, and there's been the determination that there may be some constitutional issues about what the legislature may be able to amend by statute in order to affect, some of the constitutional provisions of tax law. And I know that's a complex discussion, and you all probably know more about that discussion than I do. I did want to say, because this issue has risen to such a high level, that I've had discussions with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Director, Steve Arwood, about this, just in a very high-level context, to let him know that this is a seriously percolating issue in the Upper Peninsula. And the reason I reached out to Director Arwood is because it's his department that oversees and provides administrative support to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. They do not have oversight or regulatory authority over the Tax Tribunal. That's an independent adjudicative body that's appointed by governors, and I don't know what the political appointee breakdown is right now, but there are appointees from Governor Granholm and Governor Snyder on that tribunal. But because they are close with the tribunal and they provide that oversight and administrative support, I did want to provide, at a minimum, the feedback, and I wanted to open up and create that dialogue with the department just about this issue. So it's on the radar screen, so to speak, if you will. And I've also taken the opportunity to discuss this issue with other key decision makers in the executive office to make sure they're aware. I did receive confirmation from the governor's legislative director that this is a policy matter. The legislation that was considered and introduced, I mean, there are thousands of pieces of policy bills that are introduced every year, and they really don't reach the governor's consideration until they reach his desk, unless it's a policy matter that was introduced by the governor from the executive branch of government. This was not one of those, but they appreciated the heads up, and they said this is not a matter we've introduced, and we will track it if it moves through the process further. So I just, like I said, fortuitous opportunity here, being in the audience and recognizing that this is a very serious matter for the Upper Peninsula. I would be remiss if I didn't comment, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear the dialogue and how important it is to this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the comments. Any other comments before we close the forum discussion?
Laura Jane Kennedy, Marquette Township Board Representative to the Township Advisory Council. And I'd like to mention that I like the positive outlook of the supervisor, and I would hope that you're all in favor of supporting the millage renewal. I think we could live with a 2-year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. There's no one else. Close the forum discussion. And we will move to agenda item number 9A, consider appointments to the committee vacancies. We have vacancies on the Zoning Board of Appeals, one vacancy. We had 2 candidates at the last meeting. It was recommended that we hold off until we received the formal applications from both candidates. And to my knowledge, they have not been received, nor were they in the packet for the board. And Manager Gerard, do you want to comment on that?
But we did receive from one, but not from the second as yet, who's out of town.
Okay. So, the board's pleasure. Pete?
Well, I was just given some more information this week on tax tribunal duties and stuff like that, and I'd like to research it more. And since we have 2 other board members not here, I'd like to move this on to the next meeting.
Okay, is that a motion?
I would make that motion.
Is there a second? Support. Motion and support. Board member comment. Dan?
I just want to thank John Marks for the packet of information. To me, it was very, very helpful. It came at a perfect time for me to read it, and I think I understand a lot more now about the ZBA, so it will definitely help me in my decision making.
Anyone else? I will say that I do have a legal opinion that'll go with the packet you received from Mr. Marks in regards to some of the points he raised. It was vetted by municipal council 2 years ago. I still have the legal opinion. I'll pull it out and print it out and stick it in board members' mailbox to go along with that packet. But you will see, as far as the membership goes, was vetted by our municipal council, Roger Zappa, and I will provide that information to the full board. We have a motion and a second to move the appointment for the ZBA to the next agenda. There's no other comments. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the consider appeal of the Tax Tribunal and Court of Appeals decisions to the Supreme Court. We've kind of talked about it a bit during the forum discussion. We certainly have extensive information through the last meeting. Roger had brought up the idea as our municipal council and cautioned us to wait until this meeting to make a decision to allow us to have continuing dialogue with Marquette County, which has occurred. They had a attorney who had worked with them on the mine tax review the information from our Michigan Tax Tribunal rulings as well as our Court of Appeals rulings and present his comment back. I was out of town during that meeting. Manager Gerard did attend. I'll have him speak to that, but I will say that the county is of the opinion, or this attorney for the county at any rate, is of the opinion that he thinks he could make a good run at it with another big box store and take the learnings that we've gotten from the Michigan Tax Tribunal and Court of Appeals and try to move forward again through the entire process starting over. I also spoke at length with Municipal Council Roger Zappa this afternoon in regards to his recommendation in that light, especially since last meeting he had recommended that we postpone until we had the opportunity to have more of the conversation with the county and what they were thinking. And I can assure you that Roger Zappa's opinion is that we should probably move forward with the Supreme Court appeal and not start all over from scratch with another, case of a big box and take it all the way through the process for a couple of reasons. One, with the appeals and the rulings that were handed down, there isn't really reason to believe that we would prevail any differently. I think the Michigan Tax Tribunal is going on precedent that's been set, and they'll continue to do so, and they'll let a higher court rule on it. The other one is that we spent $250,000 in this appeal, and the county gave us $12,000 towards that end, which I appreciate greatly. but it was $12,000 out of $250,000 to try to fight this case. Now we're faced with splitting the cost of a Supreme Court appeal with Brighting Township, which could be upwards of $50,000. So our end of that would be an additional $25,000. There comes a point where it's a break even whether we, it really highlights a couple things. First, that we need a legislative solution, or this will go on ad nauseum until we just stop fighting it and we let people tell us how much they're willing to pay in taxes, because we can't afford to fight it unless we're going to cut essential services out from residents. The other thing is that we really have to look at the return on our investment, trying to start all over again. Now, what I would say is that if the county chooses to take one of our cases and wants to move it forward through the process, we would be most supportive and provide them with as much material information as they could use. But I don't believe that we can afford to provide any more financial support to start the process over from scratch. And I did receive this afternoon an email from our attorney, Bill Fahey, and unfortunately I just got it printed out before the meeting. But he just wanted to identify those principal points and issues that we hope the Supreme Court will review in the proposed appeal. And one was the Court of Appeals opinion adopts a wrong legal principle by holding that the owner-occupied Lowe's does not have any present economic income. And it has to do with whether the store is leased or owner-occupied. And so the opinion is that if the store is owner-occupied, it's worth less than a store that would be leased because there is no economic income unless it's a leased property. Also, the Court of Appeals also adopts a wrong legal principle by valuing Lowe's actively operating big box store as if it were vacant, as if it had no existing use. The opinion completely ignores the value of the existing use of the Lowe's store in direct violation of MCL 211.27. The vacant property has no existing use. So if the legislator had intended to ignore the existing use of the property, it would not have stated that in determining the true cash value, the assessor shall also consider the existing use. And I think it's a great point, and I'm not sure why the Court of Appeals ignored that point in our appeal. Also, by ignoring the existing use and requiring the Lowe's store to be valued as if it was vacant and suitable only for lesser secondary uses, the Court of Appeals opinion reaches the absurd and unjustified result that Lowe's year-old, actively used home improvement store is valued based on, one, a store that was sold to be converted into a church, and two, a store that was sold for conversion to an indoor go-kart track. These other stores were not proper comparables to Lowe's because they did not have the same highest and best use as Lowe's, but were only suitable for lesser uses, and so were less valuable. His fourth point is, instead of considering the existing use and the present economic income of the Lowe's store as required by statute, the Court of Appeals opinion claims to rely on the analysis of a fee simple interest, a term that the Court of Appeals opinion uses 40 times on nearly every page of the opinion. But the words fee simple are not used anywhere in the Michigan statutes governing property tax valuation. The opinion used fee simple, a term that appears nowhere in any statute, as a pretext to ignore the express statutory requirement to consider the existing use and present economic income of the Lowe's store. It's in direct violation of the statute. Number 5, the Court of Appeals opinion never directly addressed the township's arguments. Instead, it evaded addressing those arguments with circular reasoning and dismissive comments. For example, footnote 2 faulted the township for relying in part on unpublished and non-Michigan case law, but the Court of Appeals opinion failed to address the extensive public Michigan authority supporting the township's position. Court of Appeals also avoided discussing the controlling legal issues by hiding behind a lengthy yet incomplete and inaccurate discussion of the evidence and the facts in the underlying cases. The result in this case speaks volumes. The opinion values the store that Lowe's just built for $10 million in Marquette at only $4 million true cash value, or $2 million of taxable value. So a store that recently cost $60 per square foot or more to build is now being taxed based on 40% of its value. When multiplied by every Meijer, Target, Walmart, Kohl's, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, and any other big box store in every community across Michigan, This will result in undervaluing thousands of stores and the loss of many billions of dollars in tax base. This is the kind of high-impact case that our Supreme Court is designed to decide. In addition to these serious arguments, this appeal will have a particularly direct effect on Marquette Township. Apart from the Lowe's property tax assessment years involved in this case, 2010, 11, and 12, the Lowe's 2013 and 2014 tax years are also linked to this appeal. Also linked with this appeal are the Kohl's property tax assessments for 2011 through 2014. The Menards assessments for 2012 and 13 are also currently proposed to be linked to the outcome of this appeal. These linking settlements greatly increase the potential impact of this present Lowe's appeal on Marquette Township. So for the record, I wanted you guys to have that information. It's a recap of the information that he provided to us after the unfortunate ruling of the Court of Appeals. But there you have it, folks. It's the, do we move forward? I think that we have options. We can move forward to support Brighting Township in the appeal and ask for a leave of appeal to the Supreme Court. We can sit back and do nothing and watch how their case comes out, or we can take the county's advice and take another big box store and start the process all over again, and we'll open it up for the board. Clerk Rattari?
I'd like to make a motion that we appeal this to the Supreme Court.
Support.
We have a motion and support to appeal this to the Supreme Court. Board member comment?
Will the motion have to indicate that we're supporting working with Brighting Township?
It'll be written such that we'll support them, and we'll be filing, I believe, our own also, right, Randy?
I believe the proper form of the motion would be that we direct our council to continue with filing the appeal to leave to the application for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court at the same time Brighting is, and support both, possibly seek joint as we did with the Court of Appeals.
I think that's just what I said.
I thought that's what I heard.
That's the way I remembered it.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Other comment, Pete?
I don't think we have any choice. We have to continue with this because the end result of this, I mean, everyone agrees, the city agrees, that they've made comments about they should help us, and the county has already. It just, we can't stop because the effect on every business is going to really hurt everybody, the whole UP. I mean, what stops somebody starting with a class suit against your residential taxes? What's going to stop that? We could say it's blighted, same as Detroit. We have no choice but to march on and go after it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, we have 250,000 into this, and an extra 25,000 isn't going to break our bank. And if we don't move forward, we would never know what the outcome would be. And they might not take this case. We don't know. So it might not cost that much. But if they do, I think it's money well spent. We'll know, it's the Supreme Court of the state, and then they can make that decision.
Randy, you had comment?
Just a brief follow-up comment. In Supervisor Lima's absence, I did participate in 2 discussions with Roger Zappa and Attorney Vancouvering, along with the county administrator and the county civil counsel and one of the county board members that represents the township. And not taking anything away from Mr. Vancouvering, he's a very highly qualified attorney. The county did work with him on the severance tax issue successfully. Did not go through the Court of Appeals or through the Supreme Court, however. He does have very good background, but we have a situation where we have 2 attorneys that have looked at the same set of facts and have differing conclusions, the same as 2 attorneys that look at the same case, or 2 doctors that look at the same patient file and have 2 different opinions on care, and any number of other comparables. We have worked with Mr. Fahey for a long time. Have very good confidence in him. Have seen him through him and his associates through the Court of Appeals, and I guess I stand by my recommendation to the board. I think you're taking the appropriate action.
Thanks, Randy. Ernie?
And talking about the dollar amounts, 50,000, we split it in half, 25,000, somewhere in that vicinity. The potential loss for 9 entities in the township for for the township from 2011, 12, 13, and 14 is a minimum of $198,000 just for 9 entities. And there's potential 9 more setting out there that we think will move forward on it. So you start looking at that, just on a dollar amount, it's worthwhile, as much as I hate to spend money like this, but it may be the best and only way we have to try and beat them in that. And I can't think of any other word than that, and so that's all.
Thanks.
I don't think our issue really is that. Our issue is bringing the tax tribunal back to the point of law. And basically, they departed from that in 2010 with an aberrant decision, and just happened to be the chair of the tax tribunal that made that decision, and all of the other judges have followed suit since. So it's getting back to a point of law, and that, as Mr. Fahey pointed out, that is the function of the Supreme Court, is to interpret the law.
You know, I've had my piece. I think everybody knows where I stand with this thing. I've been banging this drum for a couple of years now, and I couldn't get anyone to listen to me at first, including the Michigan Townships Association, or their support. At least that has changed somewhat. More people have gotten on board. People are really starting to understand the impact statewide. You know, when you really can drive it home, as we're sitting here talking about library millage, and Director Christensen was here 2 weeks ago, and I said, well, the part that you're going to have to refund is $36,000 out of your budget, just from the library, just to refund back to current, you know, from the Lowe's case. You really start to realize that that has an incredible impact on many more things besides just township operations or our fire department and our ability to provide, you know, top-notch fire services. It impacts everything from the roads we drive on to the school taxes that we take to county operating to the road commission to everything. And you really start to look at those impacts. It definitely has statewide implications. I'll continue to say that a legislative solution is going to be required, knowing how politics works. I don't think that one is imminent anytime soon, but I think that if we continue to make a groundswell of support and we rattle enough cages across the state of Michigan and we raise enough awareness that politicians being politicians, if they think that it's going to cost them their election, they'll take a lot more interest in putting forth legislation that could correct this issue. And I think that's where we've got to be headed, folks, to make it happen. But in the meantime, I really do support the concept of going to the Supreme Court. I didn't initially want to spend any more money, but I think that the potential to spend up to $25,000 more to see if they'll take it, and that includes the estimate is anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 if it proceeds all the way through the Supreme Court. So our potential could be, you know, maybe $12,000, maybe up to $25,000. We'll continue to ask for support from other entities who receive taxes from us. I don't believe any will be forthcoming, but we'll continue to ask anyways and see if we can, you know, help defray some of those costs as we move forward if the board decides to take that action. Any other comment? If not, we have a motion and support to move forward and instruct Manager Gerard to alert council that we are prepared to ask for leave to the Supreme Court for this ruling. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is the new 9C, consider the Peter White Public Library millage renewal. What's the board's pleasure? Clerk Wachari.
As I stated in the forum discussion, I will make a motion to put the millage question on the ballot for an additional 2 years, and I'll have to get it legally reviewed, but that's my motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Ernie?
I said a lot before in that, but sitting down and going through everything through here and looking at past experience and looking at our financial stability of the township into the future, which is completely unknown. I sat down, I came up with 4 options. And that when I laid it all out, one is to do nothing, and that's to let the residents purchase their own library card, those that want them. How good that is, I don't know. The second one was purchase a library card for those residents wanting a card. Problem with this is the cost is unknown. We don't know what that cost is going to be, whether it's going to be more than we would normally pay, less than that, or anything else in that. The third one is millage for 1 year. This is probably one of the better options, but due to the financial future and the status of the big boxes. And the fourth one I had was millage for 2 years. Here again, I'm concerned with committing long-term. It's both good and bad to do something like this. And I look at both millages because of the financial stability of the township, which is completely unknown until we get these big boxes taken care of in that. It's not only in the Marquette Township, the Upper Peninsula, the whole state's going to be affected by this. And people who don't think it is, they're going to have a rude awakening in about 2 years down the road in that. And it's going to be a major upheaval as to where the money's coming from to do everything they want. So I'm between 2 years and 1 year. 1 year because there is a cost of $4,000. I think we could overcome that, but whether it's the best way to go, I don't know. That's my feeling on it.
Anyone else? Dan?
Well, I agree with Ernie that, obviously we have the possibility of being in dire straits financially, but then again, I guess I look at it from the standpoint that the millage does not count towards our full-based allotment of millage. So I think a 2 year, I don't see a problem with a 2 year. Even if you think about it, $208,000 for 1 mill. If we still have 1 mill available next year that we have to go back to the citizens and actually ask for, the $208,000 would probably suffice right now for any loss we would have. So I've always agreed it should be up to the voters to decide. It's their library, it's our library, it's everybody's library. So the fact that that millage does not count towards our allotted amount of millage, I really don't have a problem with it at all.
Anyone else? I think you all know where I come down on this. And I think, the point is that it's outside of those 10 mills. One of the things that we do get from the big box stores who don't want to pay taxes, but they are paying that millage to the library. So one of the benefits that we get is a stronger library because we have businesses who are helping fund some of Peter White Public Library's operations through that millage. And that's a good thing from us as a resident standpoint. Like I said, it's pretty clear that the vast majority of township residents support Peter White Public Library. I don't believe that'll be any different this November or 2 Novembers from now. We're under a little bit of attack with our revenue stream. I can support it for 2 years. I could probably support it for 4 years just because 2 years ago when we talked about this, I said 2 years from now we'll have the same conversation and 75% of the folks will support it. And I think 2 years from now we'll have the same conversation and 75% of the folks will still support it. But that having been said, Sure.
One thing, going with the millage, regardless it's 1 or 2 years, that we should really have the language in front of us when we start voting on it too, so we know exactly what the language is in that too. So,
I believe last time I got the millage language drafted, and I think it does come back to the board for final approval.
Right.
Because it has to go to, I got to talk to the assessor, Dulcie, and I got to get the current numbers for this year, or for the, the current tax year. Then it's going to go to the legal review. So it probably would come back in 2 meetings, or like probably the second meeting in June, that we would have the numbers in front of us by the time it runs its course. So, but that you would have the complete millage language in front of you, and it has to be approved into the county by the end of July. So if we ended up getting it settled that second meeting in June, I'd have plenty of time.
And it's going to read pretty much like all the other
Yes.
ones read anyway, other than the change to, because of proposal A and the change to the number of mills might be slightly different, but that's really the only difference, correct? So if there's no other comment, we have a motion and support made to consider the Peter White Public Library millage renewal for 2 years. And he will provide the proposal coming back to the board before it moves forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on your agenda is a new 10A, consider road committee recommendation for road crack sealing. It was on the agenda last time, and we didn't have the background materials. In your packet, you have been provided with the background materials from Manager Gerard, as well as from Dave Wiegand and the road committee on the ratings that they put on the various roads throughout the township that could be improved by going through that chip sealing process. Manager Gerard, you want to comment on this?
Yes, and I also have a recommendation from Dave. Dave Wiegand and I met earlier this week, actually Friday of last week. We met and discussed it. We had submitted the entire road plan, that the pages 6 and 7 out of the road plan that dealt with the crack sealing and chip sealing recommendations that the road committee had put together. We submitted those to the road commission. The information we got back from the road commission is they wanted us to narrow that down and identify specific roads. They would then include those in their bid packet and get back to us with the cost that would come back to you, hopefully for your first meeting in June. They anticipated sending their bids out later this week to have them back by the early to the next week. What that amounted to, we've had quite a bit of discussion, and what Mr. Wiegand wants me to pass along to the board is his recommendation that we concentrate with chip seal this year, and that it be Commerce Drive from US 41 all the way to Wright Street. The primary reason being that is a primary access point for the fire department and other emergency access into the township and out of the township, and the development that's going on in this part of the community, that Commerce Drive is beginning to serve more and more traffic, and the larger population, part of the population, is actually using it. So that was his recommendation to the board tonight.
Thanks, Randy. It's the board's pleasure.
No, that's not on that memo. The memo was sent out before we met. This is a carryover from your last meeting.
Randy, do we typically, I mean, last year, I think it was, when we approved the chip seal contract with Marquette County Road Commission, did we do it up to a dollar amount?
We actually, last year, we did crack sealing. We didn't do the chip seal. Chip seal is a little bit different. Chip seal includes crack sealing. They'll go through first and do the crack seals, and then they put the chip seal layer over top. Basically, chip seal is what used to be called macadam road. So where you put the emulsion down, put the gravel in it, put emulsion down on top of it to seal the roadway. It's a little more flexible. It gives you about 7 years of use, 7 years of life of the roadway, and on that particular section of the road committee's recommendations for the chip seal and the crack seal, those segments of Commerce Drive were 4 of the top 5 that they had identified for addressing. But we did last year. We did have a maximum amount, but that came after the road commission got back to us with their quotations, and it came out of the $50,000 allocation that I do every year for roads.
What dollar amount are we talking about spending this year?
To do all of those segments of road, based on very preliminary numbers that Dave had received from the road commission for them doing the work, it is right around the $50,000 that I have set aside.
And is that the money that was left over from the road millage request when we did the last one?
No, that was what was used to fund Brookton Road when we redid Brookton Road. This would be out of my budgeted funds that I have in the Township Improvements Fund under roads.
And so your recommendation to the board based upon the road committee's report, is that we move forward and that it's a wise spend of the $50,000 for roads for this year.
Right, actually, at this point, what it is to submit those road segments to the road commission so they can give us the cost estimates, come back to your June meeting, so you can approve or disapprove at that point.
Okay, so you're
Right
asking
now, we don't have
now
the dollar
for a
amounts.
Motion to approve.
Submitting Commerce Drive from US 41 to Wright Street to the road commission for crack sealing estimate,
Okay,
chip seal estimate, I'm sorry.
thank you.
So moved. Well, you can go for questions.
Motion to move forward to the Marquette County Road Commission, the proposal as presented by the road committee and manager Gerard for the board's consideration at a later date once the true costs are known. Is there a second?
I'll support.
We have motion and support. Board member comment. Dan?
Well, I'm curious because Commerce Drive is a newer road. I'm sure we have a lot older roads in the township that need to be looked at. I understand Commerce Drive is a thoroughfare straight through, and I understand that there is development going on out there, but I guess I just wonder, I feel that we should be also looking at the township roads. I mean, just, people that live in the township use the township roads. They just, Commerce Drive obviously is a road, but our other roads are deteriorating at a much higher rate than Commerce Drive is at this point in time. I know there's some problems, but we've had some fills for potholes and stuff, but I just don't understand why we're not looking at the township roads. I mean, just Commerce Drive to me and forgetting the rest of the roads just doesn't make sense to me.
Pete?
This is just the start of a program that we're trying to get caught up on this thing. By doing this here, we'll bounce us up another 7 years. If we don't do it, we're still gonna have all the older roads, still, we cannot afford to fix them. So we're starting now with this one here, try to get a jump on 7 years, and next we'll start another one, and another one, another one. But we cannot go back and leave these roads. In history, we've built the road, let it go 10, 15 years and fall apart. What this program does, it jumpstarts it, it puts it back 7 more years. So we won't be dealing with this again for a while. And then we'll start another road that's not too bad and save that one, and still, because we don't have the money. It's gonna cost over $7 million just to fix up some of the roads that we have in the township. And we have to start saving the ones that we have and then go back and start patching up the other ones. It's a new program. It's Road Safe, and is it Road Safe?
Road Safe.
Road Safe program. So we can
Yeah, and I think that is the key element that Dave was looking at here, is basically pages 6 and 7, the recommended order of repair that came from the road committee. Pages 6 and 7 are the preservation of existing roads that are salvageable. And that's the top, the top 5 of those, 4 of those segments are County Road 505, which is Commerce Drive, and 1 is the Big Bay section of the Big Bay Road between Wright Street, I can't see what the section of it is here, but there's a section of Wright Street in there as well. But the point of the chip seal is to preserve the existing roadway, and what is being said by this ranking is that Commerce Drive is, right now, it's rated as a PASER rating of 6, which means that it's on the cusp, basically, of starting to fall apart. Even though it is a newer road, the traffic on it is having an impact, as we've seen so far this spring. Chip seal will extend that to a 9, which puts it in about, as Pete mentioned, about that 7-year range. So it's preserving that road for another 7 years without having to do any major repairs on it. This is just chip seal is all that this program is talking about, either chip seal or crack seal, and the intent is to preserve those roads that are salvageable, that with minimum impact, you'll preserve them for another 3 to 5 years. In the chip seal case, out to 7 years. It's not reconstruction, it's not fixing potholes. That was not the intent of the crack seal or the chip seal. That's a different program altogether.
Good comment, Dan, go ahead.
Well, I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that, but we're saying that we're spending all our money on Commerce Drive to save that for 7 more years. But we'll get next year maybe we'll get to some of the other ones. Well, some of the other ones are in worse shape than Commerce Drive. Now we've put them off even farther to the point where chip seal isn't going to do them any good. And I guess, I understand the whole idea, you know, of this smart thing, whatever, to make it work, but again, there's other roads in the township that I'm sure are worse than Commerce Drive, and the longer you keep putting off those, they're gonna be to the point where you can't do anything with them other than tear them up and start over again. So if you're trying to preserve roads, why wouldn't you preserve the roads that are worse to start with? I guess would be my question.
Yeah. Well, I guess the only comment I can make, not being on the road committee, is this is the plan that the board adopted from the road committee, and, you know, and it's the recommendation from the chair. So I'm just passing it along to you.
The presentation that Chair Dave Wiegand did to the board in March in regards to developing a comprehensive road plan did include the concept of looking at it differently, and one of the things that Dave was trying to sell the board on at that time was, you know, you go from a philosophy of looking for the worst road in the township and throwing some money after that, or do you make a philosophy that says we need to really take a look at all of our roads, we will extend the life of certain roads that will buy us enough time while we go back and repair some others. And, you know, the board did accept that recommendation from the road committee to move forward. This is part of it, like Manager Gerard said. I get Dan's point completely. I mean, my road, take a ride up my road, and you know, it looks like we were, heavy ordinance has gone off in many areas, but throwing $50,000 on my road means patching the potholes, basically, most likely. I mean, $50,000 doesn't go very far in road repair. It really comes down to the board's philosophy of, you know, how are we going to go after this? And I know some of the talk that we talked about in budget sessions and from the road committee report is, do we go to township voters and ask them, hey, we can do the roads for $7 million. We can fix every road in the township, but it's going to cost you $7 million. And for that $7 million, here's the order of repair that we'll do it on. But you have to be willing to pay the millage. And we all sit up here knowing that any strategic planning session, any citizen survey we've done, the first things you're going to hear when you ask for comment are roads, roads, and then roads, and followed shortly by snow plowing, snow plowing, snow plowing. And so we take it seriously. The roads are horrendous, and because we don't own roads as a township, unlike the city, it puts us in a weird position where we're asking voters to agree to pay millage so that we can fix roads that we don't own. But if we're going to wait for the county to fix the roads, we should probably turn them back to gravel because it will be safer and require less maintenance funds from us. It's a struggle, but it's a philosophical one for the board to tackle. And I agree with Dan. I mean, there's a lot of roads that are worse than Commerce, but, you know, do we buy into what Dave was showing us through that Road Safe program? If we can add 7 years to the life of this road by spending $50,000, does that free us up then to put money elsewhere? You know, we talked about putting a road millage before the voters. Our millage expires this year. If November comes and we don't have a road millage put out there, it means we're going to wait a couple of years before we put a road millage out in front of voters again, and I think that would probably be a mistake. Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, I can't remember when Dave Wiegand made that presentation. I don't know, Trustee Pompa was gone for 2 meetings. Were you here for that presentation?
Yes.
You were, okay. So, you know, and it doesn't, I agree with Supervisor, and I do agree with Trustee Pompa, but that presentation basically laid it out where if you, and I think Warner Street would be part of that too, if you fix those roads first, which doesn't kind of make sense, they last longer, and then you can go after the roads that are needing some dire repair secondly. And basically that chart he gave you, you got more bang for your buck over the longer period of time by doing it with this method, because if you're going to chip seal a bad road and you're going to tear it up just a few years down the road, that doesn't really make sense. So, and I think they're going to try to coordinate some of that with the infrastructure too. So, of course, Commerce Drive doesn't need that, but it's a hard concept, and I agree with Dan. It doesn't seem right to start, but I think if you buy into the program that Dave presented, over the long term, we'll get to where we need to be. It just doesn't happen right away. And I think that's what you got to tell your constituents when they say, well, why are you fixing Commerce Drive? It's in good shape now. And you have to take a little time and explain to them that over the long term, this is a better program for your money. And that's basically what I got out of that presentation. So,
Pete?
As you look at the roads in our township, there's not a good road in the whole bunch. No matter where you go, the roads are shot. We got a chance here now of saving one and prolonging the repair in this one. If you don't do this one, all of a sudden this will be a 4 and a 3, and then you've got a major overhaul. $50,000 is not going to fix any road besides Patch and Dennis's road.
Which I'm not against, by the way.
But it is. We all know. I mean, the old guy that told me that's all he wants out of this township is to go down this road and ride down this road with all his teeth falling out. Well, you know, that's so important, and we think about that all the time when you're dealing with roads. And I ride the roads up and down. I tell Randy about different things that should be fixed. We should do this. But, you know, there's not a good one out there. Where do you start? So you start preserving the good ones that you have. Your money ahead by doing it that way. Long term, will be all right. And then we're going to be working with Kirk on the infrastructure when he does sewer. Before we do a road, we'll start doing the sewer and water, whatever has to be done to that road so we don't have to tear it up again. So it's not just a one quick fix. It's not a quick fix. We're looking at 7 to 10 years before you get all your roads out here done. If we have a millage, if everything goes right, what kind of winter do we have? So I think the $50,000 is well worth it in the long run.
Good, Randy.
I guess I just want to clarify. You said it would come out of the $50,000 that I set aside every year for basically maintenance is what that's set aside for on the roads. I don't know what that cost is going to be. It depends on what the bid is that the road commission gets back. And it's not a bid just for us, it's a county-wide bid. So it's all the roads in the county that they're going to do chip seal and crack seal on. This would be included in that list based upon a segment of it, and when that list comes back, they'd let us know what the cost is for this. But beyond that, I just wanted to go a little bit further and dovetail on something that Trustee LaRue and Trustee Pompo had touched on. The roads are in bad shape, and we know they are. And we know we've got some really bad roads, and a lot of them are in Trowbridge. We're working with the road commission to try and resolve some of that. I don't want to talk about the issues that they've got. Everybody knows what's happening at the road commission with the decrease in revenues that they're getting and the decrease in manpower and their equipment falling apart and a variety of things. We have sand removal issues that we have to deal with. We have potholes that we have to deal with. And when they're not being fixed, Supervisor Lehman, you're absolutely right. When they're not being fixed by the road commission, the residents look to the township. What are you going to do for us? And we're trying to work with the road commission as much as we can to possibly absolve them of some of those responsibilities to the extent that we can. And one of the things that's on your agenda a little bit later is along those lines. We've talked with them about our building and ground staff taking over the patching of potholes in the township from them. They supply us the material, we take care of the potholes, so they don't have to deal with it. There's nothing that irritates me more than to see that truck go by and throw 2 shovelfuls of cold patch in a hole, drive away, and the first car that goes through squeezes it all out of the hole, and we got the pothole back again. It's a waste to me, but there's really nothing more that they can do about it. They don't have the equipment to properly do it. Our theory is that if we have our building and grounds folks, who one of them is a former supervisor at the road commission, doing that with hot patch, those patches will last longer and those potholes will hold up better. And so we've talked with them about doing that. So it's one of the issues that's coming up on the agenda a little bit later. But the theory that is in operation right now is just that. It's identifying those roads that are on the cusp of becoming bad roads that we can preserve with a relatively small infusion of cash, like we did on Brookton Road. I still get favorable comments about what we did on Brookton Road. That was a $74,000 fix. That was the money left over from the millage on Werner Street, and that's what we said in the millage question that we would do. We would apply it to that. So here we're talking about a little bit over a mile of Commerce Drive, putting chip seal on it and preserving that road for another 7 years, so we don't have to bother with it. We did have failure there this year right here at this intersection, so that has to be repaired. It is one of the newer roads, but it's not new. It's been there for almost 14 years, and it's been carrying traffic for almost 14 years. So it's at the point, it's beyond half of its life cycle already, and it's at the point that it's starting to break down. So the theory that Dave has with this recommendation is we can preserve that road for another 7 years, deal with the traffic that we anticipate is going to increase, and we can see it increasing now with the opening of the Thomas Theaters and a couple of other things happening. With us being here, the volume is increasing on that road. So that's the theory behind the recommendation that Dave has put forward. Get the estimate from the Road Commission on what that cost would be to preserve that road for another 7 years, bring it back to this board for your final decision at your next, hopefully your next meeting.
Okay. Ernie?
Listening to this, and I listened to Dave Wagon, and some of the directions that the road commission going is I think, the best direction for the township in that. And looking at Commerce Drive out here, everyone's going to say it's good condition. Why do anything to it? And because that's as far as they look. When you look at 7 years, and you look at all the roads that we got, we'll be back to Commerce before we hit all the roads in the township in that. So the millage that is coming up that we're going to have to address to get on the November ballot, I think we have to do some hard figuring as to what kind of millage we want to put on there, and we have to tell the residents just exactly what it's going to be used for and that. Because the $50,000 that we allocate to roads every year is really a drop in a bucket in that. You need a lot more all the time in that. So you're not getting anything from the county. They don't have the money. They tell you point blank. So we're almost left to do everything ourselves in that. So.
Well, just by way of example, the reconstruction of Warner was $850,000.
So we have a motion and a second, I believe, to get estimates from the Road Commission for crack sealing for Commerce Drive.
Chip seal.
Chip seal. If there's no other comment, I'll take it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new 10B, consider resolution supporting the Lions Club participation in Community Day. As it is a resolution, I'll turn it over to Clerk Rattari, but it is in support of the Chocolate Township Lions Club, like they did last year. Have a one-day special liquor license to serve alcohol on Saturday, August 2nd at the Community Day at Lions Field. Clerk Rattari.
Very short resolution, so I'll read it. Whereas the Marquette Township Board of Trustees supports the Community Day at Lions Field to be held on Saturday, August 2nd, 2014. Now there be resolved that the Marquette Charter Township Board of Trustees hereby supports the application by the Chocolate Township's Lion Club for a one-day special liquor license to serve alcohol on Saturday, August 2nd, 2014 at the Community Day at Lions Field located at 2153 Cherry Street, Marquette Township, Marquette County, and State of Michigan. And I'll make that motion that we support that.
I'll support it.
We have motion and support. Any comment? Seeing none, Clerk Rattari.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yes, 0 no's, and 2 absent.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is consider budget amendment number 2014-05. Clerk Rattari.
Present to the board the budget resolution for 2014-05, and I'll give you the highlight of that here. You can find it. Nice stack of papers here. Give me a second here. Oh, here it is. I got it. Too much paper here. The highlight of this budget amendment is to increase the interest expense in the debt service department of the water fund for the 2014 portion of the Harglow settlement, which is due on July 1st. $62,000 in principal, $6,200 in interest. The principal of that is $310,000, and that's $62,000 for over 5 years. Was booked as 12/31/13. The interest will be expensed yearly. And the second part of that budget amendment is to increase the water and wastewater funds for the labor cost related to the freeze-ups. The water was $10,000, wastewater was $20,000, overtime related to the water lines, grinder pumps that have continued into May due to the cold winter and spring. Outside services related to the pumping of the lift stations is also tied to the freeze-ups. And several grinder pump components also had to be purchased. The offset will come from contingency and replacement and improvement. I make a motion to approve that budget amendment.
Second.
Motion is second. Board member comment. Randy, I just have one comment, and that would be, we do hope that we will be able to recoup some emergency fund back from the freeze-ups, correct?
That is correct. We have submitted all of our losses to the county emergency services for inclusion in the application for FEMA reimbursement. The threshold on that is about 13 million roughly, and I believe we've made that in combination with the other communities around the area. If you'll, in the consent agenda, you had the water pumping report. You noticed that for March there was a 26% increase in water usage. That did not equate to revenue. That was in essence from let runs, and we really fared quite well. We didn't have many. In fact, I don't think we had any water main breaks. They were all sewer breaks that we had, sewer line breaks, because those are plastic pipes and they froze and they broke. But we did have a lot of frozen water pipes that we had to thaw. And to avoid freezing, we did have a sizable number of residents that we put on let run. So that was lost water, a 26% increase. But that is included, the value of that is included in our claim to FEMA.
Can we get an asterisk on the water report that just shows the best estimate of what the let run gallonages were, so that it doesn't look like we sold 26% more in March because it's throwing us off for the whole year?
Right, you will see that. I had asked Kirk to put that on, but he's still doing the actual, because we still have some people on let runs. I think we had the last, just Friday, we stopped the last let run, so that did not figure in this report. So your next report will have that on it.
Secretary?
I believe as of yesterday or even today, we still had some residents with frozen sewer lines, correct?
Either frozen or broken, yes, and we are still pumping grinder pumps.
Yes.
And and again, we'll go back to the road discussion. Some of those areas, particularly Fair Street, that I know at least one board member is watching, on Fair Street, those repairs are also included in that FEMA request, because the road damage to that new road, it's one of our newer roads again, that we had to tear up because of frozen pipes, is part of that expense reimbursement. So if we do receive federal funding back, that will be for, part of those would be for that road repair in other areas as well.
Ernie?
Just a comment on Fair Avenue. I'm the one individual. They've been pumping my grinder pump twice a day and that, and drain field would maybe look better right now than that, because at least I can plan a little bit and that. Now you can't. But they will be digging up my driveway because I got to replace a broken sewer line there. And it looks like they're going to have to dig up across the road because there's a broken one there. And then talking to the Public Works the other day, asking what's going on, they said, well, we checked the manhole down the end of the block. There's still a big chunk of ice down there yet.
Yeah.
So
well, there,
who
believe
knows
it or not, there is still frost in the ground, and it's still not all out of the ground, and weight restrictions are still on, and Jim Iwaniki advises that they'll probably be on into June.
Run hot water down there,
You have to have water first.
A friend of mine lives in northwest Trowbridge and had his drain field freeze, and it's been frozen for 3 months, solid, and that's not a good thing.
No.
It was bad. So we have a resolution, or a budget amendment resolution before us. Clerk Rattari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata?
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yes, 0 no's, and 2 absent.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda is the winter sand removal petition. You do have a transmittal from May 15th from Manager Gerard talking about the transmission that we received from a number of residents concerned with the winter sand accumulation along the Werner Street pedestrian path and the Marquette County Road Commission maintenance strip, however you want to refer to it. There's also a corresponding need for similar winter sand accumulation removal from several other township designated pedestrian paths. We understand the folks who are frustrated with it there. You know, we talked about this in the past, that once that sand is put down by the road commission, it becomes a toxic substance because of the sand that's mixed in, and then because of the oils and gasoline that it picks up from the pavement. We can't just go sweep it off into anywhere. They can't use it in, mix it with cement or asphalt. It has to be disposed of properly, unfortunately, so it makes it a little more challenging. And if you want to go out and sweep the path in front of your house, nothing bad will happen to you. However, if we go out and sweep the path in front of your house, that would be a bad thing. So in order to get all of that done, we have to coordinate it. We don't have the ability, the equipment, or the disposal methods to deal with it. Manager Gerard's proposal is that there are local contractors available who could do it for a projected cost of less than $1,500, and he is requesting authorization to proceed to move the winter sand from the Werner Street and Commerce Drive designated pedestrian paths not to exceed $1,500. I was talking with Trustee Pompo before the meeting briefly about this, and Randy, one of the things that, you know, I watched the county coming through last week and doing out on the corridor, and I know they get 100% reimbursement when they do, you know, out on the highway. But as they're going through and they have the equipment here, they're in the process. And since we seem to pay them for everything else they don't do anything for free for us anymore. Wouldn't it be cost effective, since they're right here in the neighborhood, to have them like run up Werner Street for us? And I mean, would it be less than $1,500 to pay the county? Because in my way of thinking, it's only like a 20-minute cruise in that sweeper thing up the pedestrian path, and that would be the only additional amount. They're already cleaning it up from the road anyway. Yes? No?
One would think. In reality, what they're doing when they're here in the township is they're doing the primaries. They're doing, you're absolutely right, along the US 41 corridor, any of the US designated roads, any of the federal highways that the road commissions participate with, they get 100% funding back from the federal government. On the M's, the Michigan roads, M553, M28, they get 80% reimbursement. So that's what they focus on. What you saw them here in the township doing were what are designated as the county primaries, which are the primary feeders. It's that section of Wright Street that comes up to Ontario, and then Ontario over to Wright Street and Wright Street. Right out here, they turned around basically at Moran on Commerce, and I think they were going back to empty, because they have two pieces of equipment, one in South Marquette County and one in North Marquette County, and they rotate that around. We are on the schedule for right now. The estimate is sometime in August to do the township streets. I did ask Jim what the cost was to do the township. He said what it cost him. It's about he said about 140 hours it takes to do all of the roads in Marquette Township, and it cost them about $8,400 to do that. So extrapolating that, we could conceivably contract with the road commission to come prior to their August plan, if they're available, for $8,400, or we could put out for bids again to a company that does sweeping. And there are several that are in the township that do commercial sweeping for the mall and some of the other larger parking lots. We did not have very good success with that 2-3 years ago, I think it was, when we contracted. Unfortunately, because of the way our roads are constructed and the condition that they're in primarily in Trowbridge, you'll remember when we did that, it cost us $3,500 to have those intersections. We primarily concentrated on sand and intersections at that point. 2 days after they did it, we had a horrendous rainstorm, and all the sand washed down the roads again back into the intersections. So it was kind of useless. It just didn't work. I think our bigger issue is part of the road facilities plan as we're working on these roads is to get curbing on the side of the roads to control that runoff. But as it sits right now, what I'm asking for tonight is to concentrate specifically on the pedestrian ways to get them cleaned off. We've talked about several options. We've talked about simply having our building and grounds folks rent us, a broom, a rotary broom, and do it. But if you've seen any of the places where they've done the rotary broom, the dust cloud that emanates from that is worse than the sand, and you get more complaints out of that. So it is a dilemma because, as Supervisor Limita mentioned, once the road commission puts that down, it is considered by the DEQ a hazardous substance, and if you pick it up by shovel and put it in a wheelbarrow, it's fine, but if you put it into any kind of a contained vehicle, whether it's a sweeper, a pickup truck, dump truck, whatever, it's now a hazardous material and has to be treated as such, which means it has to go to a licensed landfill, it has to be burned, and you can't just use it for landfilling. That's the dilemma we have. So the cost, primarily the cost of this is the labor to do it, and the disposal of the sand costs is what it is. So we do have two township businesses that have acquired sweepers that each can do the pedestrian ways, and what I'm talking about is the full length of Warner Street, the pedestrian way that crosses US 41 at the signalized intersection, and then goes from there to Schwemmwood Park. Primarily those to get those cleaned off and get the sand hauled.
Okay. Trustee Pompo.
Right, and I understand that, but I think where Supervisor Limita was coming from, and my question also was, is the road commission did do Werner, and I'm assuming that's because it's a primary road.
Mm-hmm.
A simple 20-minute run. I mean, they swept up all the sand that was on the side of the walkway path. A simple moving your sweeper over 3 feet to do
Mm-hmm.
the walkway path is only a 20-minute run. I can't imagine where they would charge us over $1,500 to do that. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's.
Question is,
I guess I'm not sure if on the highway, if they did the walk path on the highway. I didn't look close to see. They did. Okay.
yeah.
So, for that simple extra run down the path on Werner, I can't see that being a $1,500 bill. If the total was for $8,400.
Yeah, it may not be just for that section, but
Of course, now they've already mobilized through there, so if they
Yeah.
want to do it now, it will be.
actually they weren't doing. They were filling with water is primarily what they were doing. They came in to fill with water and then went out again.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure on this one? I mean, we've got a request. I don't know how many signatures were on there, but we got a couple pages full of them, and the folks' comments that were in there mostly just said, "Please clean."
Yeah.
Get it done. Please
yeah,
clean.
It is a dilemma that we dealt with when we talked about complete streets and establishing complete streets. When you put the pathways in, establish the sidewalks and the walkways, you need to be able to deal with them, and then you have some of these regulatory issues that come up that makes it almost impossible for you to deal with it.
Good, Ernie.
Looking at the requests here for Warner and that, and if we move forward on this, I could almost guarantee that we're going to get more requests for more roads. You already spent this, why can't you do it on my road and everything else? So we're actually, which way do we go? If we do one, we're going to have more coming up right on down the line, because I can do it on Fair Avenue. Once they get all the potholes and filling and redone from the winter, we have a lot of that on Fair Avenue, so it's a possibility there.
Yeah, and that is why I'm identifying designated walkways there.
Yeah.
Well, I remember last year when they cleaned Warner Street, and it didn't take them more than a morning to do it, so I don't think it's going to be more than 4 or 5 hours to do it. Because it's not that long of a stretch to do, and it's in good condition, so it's just going up sweeping it basically and pulling the dust and everything. So, they should be able to do it for less than $1,500. I don't understand why they shouldn't, because like I said, last year I watched them, and it was not more than 4 or 5 hours for that whole stretch, plus the pedestrian way, so.
Pete, what do you think?
The reason we did, like Warner Street, it was done, the curbing is fixed up there. We have a bike path or a walkway. It's designed for walking, biking. It's designed for water to go down the street to the sewer. after we do this, we won't have to go back and sweep it again. Other streets are gonna have to because they don't have curbing or anything like that, or rounded curb to contain it. And that's part of the long-range plan of fixing our roads. You fix them the right way, and then we have to remove the sand, because, you know, I like to know where the sand's going, but I mean, and what are we gonna get if we do it? Are they gonna give us some credit for doing other jobs if we're doing the sand collection? You know, that's another subject, but I think we should just make the motion and approve of it and go out and see what kind of prices we can get on it and get it done.
Agree, I think
We've
that.
got too much money involved in this thing. I mean, every complete streets we put in, and that's what we wanna do, will make people to walk on a safety strip but not on the road, because we really don't have the roads for people to walk in. So if we fix them up, we have to maintain them. So I would make a motion that we go out and get the prices and get them swept off.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to obtain prices to move forward with the cleaning the walkway sand removal. Other comments, Dan?
I would hope then that next year we, well in advance, we get a hold of the county and that, since they will be doing Werner again, I'm sure, and ask them what it would take, how much it's gonna cost them to just make that extra 20-minute run down the sidewalk.
I think it's a board philosophy question again. It's a policy thing. We need to set policy that says this is what we're going to do. As a board, we've supported the concept of complete streets and making a more walkable and bikeable community. We all love the idea. We want to be interconnected to our trails. We want to be connected from the city's bike paths out to the township, out to the trails and so forth. I think it's a great idea, but if we don't keep them clean, if we don't set policy that says let's keep them clean, then we haven't really accomplished what we said we were going to do. They're not walkable and bikeable if we don't get them cleaned up. Randy?
Yeah, just a quick comment about when the road commission was doing US 41 and they did the safety strip, they had multiple pieces of equipment out there. It was not just the sweeper. They had a tractor and a brush, a broom that swept it out into the road, then the sweeper picked it up. So they had a crew of six people doing that. What we're talking about here is these folks have a smaller unit that will fit on the bike path, and it's the cost of mobilizing, getting the equipment there, doing the work, and then disposing of the sand is where most of the cost is. It's the disposal costs.
We're aware of that. We're just saying, I think Dan's point was moving forward.
Oh,
if
yeah.
we have a policy in place that says let's contact them if they're here and they've already got the equipment mobilized. If they're running up Warner Street anyways, why not run up it, do the pathway, and if you need to charge us for it, charge us for it.
Understand.
Clerk, sorry.
Yeah, and, you know, I had a resident ask me about that, and it wasn't the one in the audience, but someone else. You know, and I did mention to him, you know, it snowed last week and it did accumulate, and I mean, this has been a bad year for that, and we can't really get that swept till all the snow is realistically done. So, I mean, it snowed last week and it accumulated, so we could have ended up with more sand on the road.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would like to be, you know, at some point in time, we should probably explore, I'd like to find out just exactly what the deal is with the sand, where they dump it, how much it costs to dump it. And if it's going to be this continual, maybe we should put it in our CIP, maybe possibly start looking for maybe having our own sander and budgeting that removal.
Randy, can you do a little research on that and provide it in your manager's report for the next meeting?
Sure.
Where it goes, what they do with it, what happens after it leaves here?
They take it out to the landfill, out to the landfill, and they burn it out there to burn the impurities out of it, and then it's usable again.
Okay. And then maybe talk to Jim over at the road commission and ask if they can, you know, what would that look like? You know, would they be
Sure.
interested? Can they do that? And then just let us know.
Yeah, I can put an estimate together for us.
We have a motion and a second to approve moving forward to get the winter sand removal cleaned up from the pedestrian walkways, or to get prices and bring it back to the board for final approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is consider the Township Hall property acquisition and parking lot expansion. Clerk, sorry.
Excuse me, before we move to the next agenda item, the manager's authorization is $2,000, right?
Yep.
If this price comes below $2,000, I think he would have the authorization to do it,
Yes.
just so everyone knows. So, because the residents probably would like to get this done as soon as we can get it done. So, because nice weather is coming from what I see the forecast, so.
It came to the board as a petition, so that's why it's on the agenda.
But just so everyone knows, he's got that expenditure, and if the prices come below that, just get it done.
So in your packet, you do have the transmittal from Manager Gerard in regard to the expansion of the Township Hall Community Center parking capacity, dated May 15th. He does highlight in the fact that the subject property is 1.4 acres immediately north of and adjacent to the Township Hall Community Center. When we were developing the facilities plans, and we had actually did a land swap with property, we already owned that property, and at the time we swapped it out for land to make it more available to complete the township fire hall during that construction phase. After we have been in this facility for 9 months now, and as our community center becomes more popular, you'll also note in your packet the picture of the clerk's meeting from last week. All I can say is Clerk Rattari knows how to pack a house. You'll see the cars are lined up on the street. It creates a dangerous situation, and we've been in negotiations for quite some time with the landowner, Cornerstone Development, ever since we moved in here. And I was pretty adamant, we were talking about it, that I didn't want to give up that property, but in order to make the deal work, we did it. Ever since we've done it, I've been asking him nonstop, when can I have that property back and how can we work this out? Because we've got to have the appropriate parking so that we don't have people out on the street. We're creating our own unsafe situation. Just to prove a point that no good deed goes unpunished, we wanted to get a sense of place in a community center so people had a place to gather, and we accomplished that, and it's working very well. It's very popular. Unfortunately, in our decision-making, we were short-sighted in the amount of parking spaces we needed. We have worked out a deal with them, and as part of it, you can see the drawing in there and the additional spaces and what would occur from the existing parking and what that would look like along there. The other thing that it would do if we were to acquire that property, if the board decides to move forward, is it leaves another space for a pocket park behind there of approximately perhaps 80 feet behind the parking, and then where that drop-off is back there, and then back up to the township office, which would be an ideal spot for either some park benches, picnic tables, but a little spot as the business park develops out here. People can walk in, have lunch, whatever. It just makes a little more greenery, makes it look nicer, so it's not all, we're not going to end up with all office space or all industrial. And it really buys us the additional parking spots that should be more than what we need. Randy did mention in his transmittal that there was money left over in the remaining proceeds of the Township Hall Community Center project, with the draw that we had, roughly $75,000 remaining in there that we hadn't had to take out, that we could apply towards the actual paving of the parking lot. Purchase of the property would be at $200,000, at the same amount as the Public Works project. We would wrap it into a separate financing package. It would go against the general fund of the township operations, but it would give us that opportunity to finalize it as we're finalizing this entire project. The purchase price also will include a charitable donation from the property owner for the price of the property. He's actually bringing it down to below market value in order to work with us. As part of this conversation, I also just want to point out from the fire department has also recognized that it was maybe short-sighted in the size of the property we selected over there, and that they could use approximately an additional 50 feet at a minimum, maybe 75. As part of this negotiation, I also have negotiated a 1-year right of first refusal for up to 100 feet of additional property adjacent to the, or immediately west of the current fire hall. And the board would have up to 1 year to determine whether or not they wanted to move on that. They will have right of first refusal after that. If somebody comes in to buy it, they buy it. but it would give us time to consider whether that's feasible. And I know from the fire department's budget standpoint, I know they would like to have that property to be there for future expansion if necessary, or as a future training area. But it's also important to remember that as we battle through this tax tribunal cases, we have to be mindful of our budgets and what we can afford to purchase and not purchase. The hard part for us is that once that property is gone, if we did lose it from here or from the fire department standpoint, it's gone forever, and there's no way to get it back and expand our parking. But that's the background on it, and with that, I'll open it up for the board's pleasure. Clerk Rattari?
Yes, the photo, and I don't know, it's in the packet, but I'll put it up so everyone can see if the camera operator can zoom in on that. We had 81 people here that day for a training session in this room. And I can tell you, it doesn't happen every day, but if I had 30 more spots, probably, we probably could have put everyone in the parking lot, I'm thinking. So, and I can see with this facility, I mean, 90% of the time, the parking we have now is fine, but I think as this facility moves forward, we can have events in this room, we can have events in the community room, and the parking situation, we just need to address that, because it's just not, I mean, if I have 50 people in here and 50 people next door, we can do that now, so, and not conflict, you know. So we didn't have a problem before because we only had one room. Now we have multiple rooms that we can use at the same time, and I really don't want to see residents parking out on the road because it's not very safe, especially with the short curve over there. So, I mean, I'm supportive of this. Again, I know the treasurer's going to say, where's the money coming from? But I think we've done a good job financing, and I think if we can put it on the additional financing we have, that's probably a good solution, and move forward from there.
Ernie?
Why do you always look at me when it comes to money? Going through this, true, I was looking at 200,000. I don't really know what the value of that land is over there, so I can't really address that. But I was looking at 20 years with a 7-year balloon at the interest rate of 3.15. The question I have is, what are the chances for us to pay this off in 7 years without going into that balloon portion of it? I think that's something that we need to come up with, as far as I'm looking towards the future, trying to plan all this, because after 7 years, we have no idea what that interest rate's going to be, and I don't have any idea what kind of dollars we're going to have left to pay after 7 years in that. So that, to me, is one concern I have. Excuse me. I think the concept overall is pretty good. The one thing I'm looking for is, looking at the diagram, there was some discussion of putting in a wooden fence over here at that point in time. Also, with our grounds people and the equipment that they need to maintain in here, we have to have some storage for that equipment. We don't really have that right now. So I was trying to go through this and see where it is actually indicated on this, and I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly in that. So that's something we have to look at, and I don't know if that's part of the 75,000 or not.
No, and it was discussed, Ernie, where if you look all the way out at the end of the parking lot, and then it would be on the easternmost side moving towards the drop-off, and like I said, it will be somewhere between 80 to 100 feet after the parking lot of just green space out to where it drops off. In that area, all the way down to the end of the parking, we would be able to put in, like we have the dumpster enclosure out of this one, we will remove that because it would be in the middle of the expansion of the parking, and put it to make it look, again, like the building. We're not gonna, put up just a wood shack or something, but it'll match the building's facade, and we'll move the dumpster farther out down towards the end of that parking. It's not depicted on here, but then we'd have to come up with, what size of storage do we want? Do we just need a man door with, a rolling door big enough for the snow blower? It's kind of, that part hasn't been worked out yet as far as what that would look like out there from storage standpoint. They're getting by right now with what they have. but clearly it's not the best case scenario. You're right, from having, you know, even just the shovels and the lawn equipment and lawnmower and snow blowers, we need some type of facility here to be able to store those in. But whether that happens, whether we have to build those this year or not, remains to be seen. Pete?
I agree with that we have to do this because somebody's going to get hurt out here. You know, I've been here for several different functions, and it's parking is terrible out there. We could never give it up, but we did just to make, you know, things work before. But the importance of having that, and I would make the motion that we move forward in doing this.
I'll support that.
Motion and support, other discussion? Ernie?
On the 75,000, is that going out on bids, or is that part of the cornerstone or is that, how is that going to be handled?
No, that's already been bid. That's part of this project. That's 75,000 remains from this construction that hasn't been drawn yet. So we're expanding the parking lot for this facility. It's part of the same project.
Okay,
The property purchase is going to be a separate mortgage.
okay, but I'm talking about the 75,000 for the parking expansion, which is making the parking lot itself. Will that go out on bids?
Still falls under the covenants of Cornerstone.
That's the question I
Yes.
ask, and that
Yep.
too, so.
Falls under the covenants of Cornerstone. They'll be the ones building it.
Well, the other question is, can you come up with some financial picture as to, on that 200,000, what we'll be paying per year, what the projected payment, so
Mhm.
we know how long it's going to take and how much we may have left at the end of 7 years?
Yep, you will. If you approve going forward with the project tonight, it will come back to you for your next meeting with a complete purchase agreement and all of those details in it. But we're certainly confident that within that 7-year period, that's our target, same as with this facility being paid off in 7 years. And if for some reason that doesn't occur, there won't be much of that $200,000 left after 7 years.
And it would just depend on where you want to go with the sale of the other facility pending when that's completed.
Mhm.
If it makes sense for us to eliminate this project or this phase of the project out of there, we could certainly do that.
You know, this is just a slightly higher percentage rate. This is at 3.15. This is at 2.25 here for this facility.
You know, as I always say, I always ask where the money's coming
Mhm.
from, so I keep bringing that up.
It's coming from the general fund.
Is there any other comment? We have a motion and a second to approve the manager's request for property acquisition and parking lot expansion. If there are none, we'll take to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes.
Just for the record, the clerk's issue is not the first time we've run into this. We've had 5 different events here so far where we've spilled over to the fire department, Moran Street, and Commerce, and we haven't even gotten to graduation parties yet.
I think one thing is, Lynn isn't here, but she would normally ask where her form is, too, on some of this.
Now that you've approved it, it'll be part of the package you get.
Next
At your
item
next
on your
meeting.
agenda is consideration of the Iron Range Roll race requests. It's been a while. I know you guys have been waiting patiently for 2 hours and 14 minutes. I appreciate your patience.
Go ahead.
Okay, you're all set. You're all set. There.
Mr. Springer, take it away.
Good evening, Mike Springer. I'm here on behalf of the Rec Committee. Just a quick report on cleanups. We've cleaned up Schwemmwood Park a week ago Saturday, and this last week we worked on Lions Field. Tonight, I'm here to ask the board support, some financial support for National Trails Day. I'm going to give you a little history of this, and I also have 2 guests with us here tonight. Melissa DeMars from the YMCA and David Nyberg, from, who is the co-chair of the Iron Range Roll. So, Kathy, I'm glad you're here because you're in a few of these pictures. Remember this when we went out?
The mic.
You can you can take the mic with you.
Okay.
You can carry the mic with you.
All right. I'll do that. So I want to just take us back a little bit and how the celebration at Shrumwood started. And basically what we did is the rec committee went out and we surveyed the property, and we found that there was a better place to access the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. With that, we celebrated our first celebration of National Trails Day in 2007. We actually made the front page news, above the fold, we like to say. And from there, we did a number of cleanups. Cleaned up a lot of stuff out of Schwemmwood Park, and we recognized that this park had potential and recognized that it could be a potential trailhead. It was actually designated as a trailhead on the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. In March of 2010, this board agreed with the rec committee and supported applying for a Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant in order to purchase that property. The board provided a 76% match for the funds to acquire the new property. So we got busy. We were expecting, we have a visit. Matter of fact, we're going to have 2 visits coming up this year because of the 3 grants that we've written from the state. So we got busy at Schwemmwood, put in a new sign or repaired the old sign and installed that. We had the Boy Scouts out to help us put wood chips down on the trail and helped us with some signage. And we had quite a celebration. Brought out the community and celebrated a clean, rejuvenated Schwemmwood Park. Just in time for our visit from the state, we have a woman from the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant there. And we also have representatives from the Iron Ore Heritage Trails, along with board members and local volunteers for Schwemmwood Park. And here's who is listed during that visit. So we were able to purchase this property in red. Actually, we were able to purchase it in 2011 due to the 2010 grant. That didn't stop the rec committee. We went out and GPSed areas and made plans for the new property. And this is the master plan for Schwemmwood Park. You'll notice that in the park, or the 2 grants we just applied for, one grant improves the walkway from the parking lot to the actual trailhead. The other grant will improve the parking lot. And these are some of we want to recognize the people that contributed $15,820 towards the purchase of this park. Along with the businesses and the organizations that you just saw, these individuals contributed money towards that purchase. In 2013, we installed a new sign with the master plan on it, also recognizing the financial donors. And we celebrated National Trails Day in 2013 at Schwemmwood Park. Now in 2014, we were planning on, again, having a celebration there, but we became aware of a regional event that's occurring on National Trails Day. And the rec committee decided that this event was a worthwhile event, and we'd like to support it. So that event is the Iron Ore, or the Iron Range Roll, and I'm going to ask if Mr. Nyberg and Ms. DeMars will come up here and tell us a little bit about that. You want to do this?
No, you can actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I'm going to try and be brief, but thank you. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've already had the board's attention for a previous meeting and was able to give a pretty robust presentation about what this event is. But for the benefit of those watching and in the audience, real briefly, the Iron Ore Heritage, the Iron Range Roll is an event that the 40 below young professionals of Marquette County decided that we were going to pursue. Is an event that would promote healthy outdoor recreation, family-friendly recreation along the asset of the Iron Ore Heritage Trail that we have here in the county that connects and spans all of our communities in the county. And it really is indicative of our organization because we're a county-wide organization. And essentially what the nuts and bolts of this event is it's a 16-mile point-to-point multi-recreational event that you can either run, ride your bike, or put together a 4-person relay team. And it's all downhill. So we like to think that that makes it a little bit more inclusive. There's a few uphill spots, right? And I'll be honest, I was somewhat familiar about the history of the building of the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. I'm familiar with the grant process and how the segments have come together. But I really appreciate that background and history from Mike because it's kind of new to us. I mean, and it really shows kind of the dovetailing. You can kind of see a project, 10 years in the making, come together. And wow, 40 Below didn't really realize that we're potentially part of a bigger project here, not just throughout the county, but here in Marquette Township. With the Iron Range Roll, I didn't mention that this is the first organized event on the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. So we're real excited about that. The second organized event on the Iron Ore Heritage Trail is the Marquette Marathon. They've changed their route to the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, and we've actually been partnering together with the Marquette Marathon organizers so we can learn from one another. They have some more experience in event planning and race planning, so we're learning from that aspect, and then they're going to work with us on our event so they can learn what works and doesn't work on our event. I'd be remiss also if I didn't mention that we plan on this being a multi-year event as well. I'm real excited about it. I think there's a lot of synergy here for the Iron Range Roll and 40 Below Young Professionals to make this really a signature event for the township and the community. And I'm really excited to see that Schwemmwood Park trailhead continue to grow and continue to foster a relationship we have with the rec committee and with the township. I also, just for the record, we did not know that it was National Trails Day when we picked our date, so that's actually pretty fortuitous, but it's also, it creates some logistical challenges. We originally planned on starting our event at 11 a.m., but there's another event on National Trails Day called the Marquette Trails Festival, which we didn't know also was happening because they were planning it on the Trails Day. So we've been working with them as well. We pushed our start date actually, we pushed our start point back actually to 1 p.m. starting in Ishpeming, because we had some bicyclists that want to do the mountain bike downhill single track race in the morning at South Trails and then come up to Ishpeming and do the Iron Range Roll. So there are people really excited about this. The people are registered from throughout Michigan and Wisconsin. We're working on bumping those registration numbers up, and we're really looking forward to making this a great event. So we appreciate, I just like to take this time to thank Mike for he's been very great partner on our committee, and also all the township members that we've been working with. So I probably went over the time I wanted to talk, but I'm real excited about this, and there's a lot to add. Melissa is going to talk a little bit about part of the beneficiary of this event, which is the beneficiary we chose because it had a lot of a lot of overlap with the goals and the, of our members in supporting youth and supporting outdoor recreation with youth.
So my name is Melissa DeMars, and I am the program leader for the Reach and Rise mentoring program at the YMCA. I'm a professional counselor, and I was hired by the YMCA in October of 2013 to implement this program. It's actually a nationally recognized program through the YMCA. It started in 1992 in San Francisco and San Mateo, California, and after evidence-based outcomes with youth, we received the YUSA received federal funding last year in 2013 through the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And so we have a 2-year grant to implement this program here in Marquette, which I did in October, started to do in October. And it's a 2-year grant-funded program, so we hope to extend it beyond that. But what we do is we really look to create a relationship with youth. It's a one-on-one mentoring program, and we look to have the mentors create a real intentional helping relationship with youth. So we work with at-risk kids ages 6 to 17, and they're facing a number and a wide variety of challenges. It could be a youth that is simply from a single parent home and needs an adult mentor to spend time with them. It could be a kid who's grieving the loss of a parent. We work with kids who have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, we also work with kids that are on the verge of or in the juvenile justice system. So I train the mentors. They go through 15 hours of training on basically paraprofessional counseling skills. They learn how to just be really good listeners and present with the kids and not push their own opinions or agendas, but just get to know them. It's a strength-based program. We recognize their strengths and then give language to their strengths and look to help them get involved with community activities or sports or hobbies where they can utilize their strengths. Our message to them, just by being there one-on-one, the mentor is there every week for 1 to 3 hours, and the commitment is 1 year, is that you matter and your role in the community matters. You're cared about by your community, and what you say, have to say matters. So that is really, you're important, is what we're trying to get across to them, and support them also with extra services if we can do that. I have almost 9 matches at this point, and it's been awesome to see the change in the kids. It's the best gift that you could give a counselor or anybody who believes in investing in people and in community. And we've had probably 4 kids that have they've been matched for about 3 months, and they've undergone some pretty significant growth and changes, and it's just so absolutely rewarding. So we hope we're very, very grateful that 40 Below chose us, our program, to benefit from this, and looking forward to hopefully extending the program to make it a long-term YMCA program. So thank you so much, and thank you to Mike too for all your support.
Thanks for that information, because we had no idea. I know the last time you were here and you were telling us that you're raising money because you're going to put back in the community. What a great cause, and thanks for giving her the opportunity to get in here and share it with us. That was awesome. Congratulations on the program.
So just a little update on what the rec committee did. We went out and looked at transportation. We also looked at possible places for parking, because this is going to be a relay point. It's also the one of 5 trailheads, and it's the last one before they go into the finish line at Marquette Commons. Also, I don't know if we mentioned, but 75% of the funds from this race goes to Melissa's program. It's dedicated by 40 Below. So we went out and we took a look at, there was a suggestion that we take a look at Northwood's parking lot and access to the trail there. Rec committee went out and took a look at that. Found out that it was very difficult to access the trail there, and the parking lot needs a lot of cleaning up. So we actually decided that Schwemmwood Park is the ideal place for the trailhead for this event. The rec committee met there and discussed all the different things that we would need. And this is Pete LaRue there kicking something around here. So we kicked around some ideas, and this is what we came up with. Now, in your packet, you have a memo from Jason McCarthy. And back in probably back in May, this was a list that we came up with. It has been edited since then, but we need to address these items that was in the memo, because this is where we need board support. We're going to need 2 porta potties, one in the parking lot and one at the trailhead. We were looking at how can we use transportation. Well, we cannot park people at the trailhead, because we're going to, actually, we can't park them at the Schwemmwood parking lot, because we're going to have tents there. There's not enough room for all the people that are going to be coming there. So we're going to block that off, and we'd like the transportation to come and drop people off at the mouth of the driveway there. Now, so they pull off the road and they'd get in the driveway of Schwemmwood, and then drop off bicyclists and pick up other bicyclists and take them back. As I understand it, we have a contract with Checker. So Checker is going to be doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you...
I'll come stand by.
Yeah, this is good, because...
So,
yeah.
So one of the things that had come up, we had talked about transport, as Mike mentioned, and we're currently in discussions with Checker Cab. And We have a quote from them, and I anticipate that we're going to have transportation service provided to bring runners and relay participants from the city of Marquette, because the race ends in the city of Marquette. So they would end there and have their vehicles there and bring them up to the start, and then allow people to be there for the start ceremony, and then bring the relay participants down to each of their relay locations. So if you're running the third leg of the relay, you would get transported from Checker from the start of the race down to Schwemmwood.
Okay.
So we have the transportation stuff worked out.
Right.
The third one on there, we had trained professionals for safety officers at crossings. This is probably our most serious issues here in terms of safety, and we want it to be a safe event. Any event that has a mishap or a tragedy certainly mars it for future events. But as it turns out, what we're going to be doing is we're going to stop the bicyclists. We're going to set up radio relays, and we're going to have to stop them before they come to these crossings. So that part is going to be taken care of by the volunteer force. Am I correct? Okay.
We'll have a robust volunteer contingent at 492.
Excellent. We already have an emergency communications plan, access plan. I believe that's already set. Okay, and we just received some maps of the entire crossing that was needed by emergency services. We're going to need road signs. I already talked to Randy Gerard about that, and he said that Public Works would be able to put up some road signs on both of the crossings on both sides. There's going to be an orientation for volunteers that's going to be handled by 40 Below. We're going to get a banner for Schwemmwood Park entrance for the event. We're going to need some directional signage and sticks. That's all part of the township will provide trash and recycling receptacles and tents. We're going to need some tents there. I'm going to get into those. We do have one tent that the rec committee's been using for display. We're going to use that in the parking lot. We will need a tent for a first aid station. It'll be stationed at the trailhead. Also at the trailhead will be a tent for volunteers that will be providing water and any other snacks that we come up with. And we also need a communications tent at the parking lot. And that's the recommendations that the rec committee came up with. So I'm going to just move on here for real quick, and then we can come back to this.
So what you're asking the township for, though, from our perspective from the board, is approval of porta potties for the parking lot and trailhead. We coordinate the road signs with Public Works, and trash receptacles and tents. That's what you're asking the board for.
Yes, and Randy Gerard found out some information on tents, and he can provide that for us. I don't know if you want to do that now.
Done some rough calculations, and we'd be making about roughly a $600 contribution to National Trails Day. There are no, that I'm aware of, there are no tents any longer available for rent. They've all been parceled out to other vendors, and they're large, 20 by 20 and 30 by 20. So they're a little bigger than what we can handle at the trailhead. So there are some local sources to purchase, and we should probably have a couple on hand anyway.
We have some that we use at lines.
Those were canopies. What they're looking for are full-side tents.
Okay.
Yeah. In addition to the canopies.
This doesn't have to do with this, but we are past our 9:30, so I think I'd like to make a motion that we extend our meeting for a half an hour.
Support.
Motion and support to expend the meeting time for 30 minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Proceed.
That's it?
Yeah, okay.
We have a few more here.
Yeah, just jumping back to that. They wanted to have walls for the first aid tent and for the volunteers.
Just one more thing is that we still need lots of volunteers, and this is going to be a big celebration at our trailhead, biggest event that we've had at Schwemmwood. We hope this continues in the future, but we need some volunteers to help pull this off. So please contact 40 Below. And you want to say more about this? I think that's...
We have a volunteer coordinator that actually, it's mind-blowing how organized she is with all of the volunteer coordination. She will have a coordination for she has to have a specific one for the city of Marquette because they have different requirements for the volunteers, and then she's going to have another orientation for the other volunteers. We're talking about 60 to 70 volunteers. We have a lot of them recruited, but more is better, because the more, if we can put 4 volunteers at a road crossing instead of 2, it's just a couple hours in the day. So consider this a forum to solicit more volunteers. But we already have, I think, in that 50 ballpark. So we're doing pretty good.
Who should they contact?
Victoria Leonhardt, or just our info at 40blowmqt.com, or my email, davidnyberg@gmail.com. I'll connect you to Victoria. Victoria is our volunteer coordinator, and she would be the person to contact, but I don't have her email off the top of my head. So.
Okay.
Thanks, David. So on the screen, you have some of the positions that are available for volunteers, and you also have an email address up at the top to visit Iron Range Roll, and from there you can click on volunteer and volunteer for that. So that concludes our request from the Rec Committee. Appreciate your support and hope to have this again next year.
Great, thanks, Mike. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you, guys. Randy, so you've got their request from Mike Springer and the Rec Committee. Are there any issues? You need anything from the board to move forward? I mean, it's within your spending limits. You have the in your budget to be able to move forward with it to support National Trails Day and the actual relay, or I can't remember the name right now, Iron Range Roll. Thank you very much.
Yes, it basically resides in our community events
Okay.
line item in the budget. Basically, what it amounts to, we will fund the 2 porta potties, similar to what we have at the Kitty Park, the handicap size with the wash station. So there'll be 1 at each location. Probably have to pick up 2 tents because they do need walls for the aid station, and for the communications they need to have a walled tent, and then we'll use the canopies that we have for the others.
Okay. And you said you're struggling with finding the rentals available for the tents.
We're gonna have to buy, and we'd buy them from a local vendor. They run about $89 a piece.
Okay.
The ones that I priced out.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Next item on our agenda is the manager's report. I know you have the written report before you, dated May 15th, from Manager Gerard, discussing Winter Freeze, the Tax Tribunal Challenge Response, the truck traffic routing, and North Star Academy graduation. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Manager Gerard?
No, not really. Nothing to the written report.
Are there any questions for Manager Gerard? Go ahead,
I
Vernon.
have 2, do we have any idea about the audit report as to,
Last I checked, it should be coming electronically yet this month. By the end of the month is the estimate that the accountant had.
What is the other question?
other question is about the truck traffic routing. I talked to Manager Gerard on that, and I looked at the dollar amount that the city of Marquette got for their roads, but yet they're moving into the township. We don't really have control of the roads, but the roads are within the township, and they're going to take a toll on those, and the county does not have the money to maintain those once you get all these trucks rolling through there. I think we may have a problem in the future maintaining those roads for our businesses and everything else within it. So it may be worthwhile to think about having a joint meeting with the road commission and see what we can do to meet with the mining company to see if they're would be receptive to looking at some dollar amount for those roads at some point in time.
I will answer that one real quick, Ernie, just in the fact that we have ongoing meetings, although it's been postponed while the city and Lundin worked out their trucking agreement. But we have regular scheduled meetings that everyone's party to, and I will say that Lundin Mining has paid or put millions of dollars into funding for the route. The existing route exists, and this was one portion of it. They were also funding the Lundin Mining for the truck route as it exists right now is only expected to increase. It'll be an additional 3% of the current truck traffic that we have. The roads were designed to county standards according to engineer manager Jim Iwaniki. They can more than handle it, and will, a 3% additional commercial truck traffic on the roads, wear the roads out quicker. Well, sure, I mean, to a certain degree. But you're right, we don't own, where they're coming up Wright Street to 492 and out on US 41 isn't necessarily roads that we're putting any money into. That'd be strictly between Marquette County Road Commission and Eagle Mine or any other trucking interests. But you're right, it was a pretty good, considerable offer between Lundin and the city of Marquette. I'm glad they were able to make an agreement. Clerk Terry?
Yeah, going back to the audit, talking to the accountant, we got the final draft last week. She went over it and had some additional comments. It's going back to the firm that did it, and it should be back for board viewing in a couple weeks, and that's long before the filing deadline. So if you have any questions when the audit comes back, we can address that then.
Other questions for Manager Gerard? Seeing none, we'll move on from the manager's report. We'll go to passport grant resolution reapproval. Clerk Rattari?
Okay, and I apologize to the board for bringing this to their attention, but talking to the planner last week, there was a slight change in the verbiage of the grant, and the numbers did not change. I think it was just a sentence that changed, and we have to go through the reapproval portion of it again to be in the minutes and submitted in proper fashion. I did talk to our legal counsel, and he said, yeah, you have to go through that approval process again, just so it's correct in the minutes. So when we send it in, it's correct in the minutes of the meeting, and also for the state passport grants. So hopefully it won't be that long, because there's 3 of them. We've already approved them, and none of the money has changed. It's just a line. A sentence has changed, and I'm not going to read them because they're going to be in the minutes. So basically, we're just going to handle these resolutions like we did last time. The first one's going to be for $11,000, and that's for the Lions Kitty Park renovation project, and that passport grant's going to be for $11,000. Resolution number 1, and I'll make a motion to approve that.
Support.
Motion and support for Resolution 1 for Lions Township Kitty Park. Clerk Rattari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion carries 5 yes, no, and 2 absent. The second resolution is for the Schwumwood Park Iron Ore Heritage Trail Large Development Grant. And that is for $25,000, or no, excuse me, for $71,000. And I make a motion to approve that resolution.
Second.
Motion and second, and if there's no questions, Clerk Rattari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
And thirdly, the last resolution is for $13,000. It's for the Schwumwood Park Iron Ore Heritage Trail Small Development Grant. And I think it was, I'll correct myself, the last one was $25,000, not 71, but this one is.
Yeah, we made a commitment for 25-1
Yeah.
on the last one.
And this one is for $13,000, and I make the motion to approve this.
Second.
Yep, yeah, I'll change that.
Yep.
13,000, in the resolution, it says $13, so I'll change that. I'll make that up right here. So that'll be corrected as 13,000. Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you, and we will now move forward with submitting those grants into the state.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda, God, there's no end to this thing, is the Building and Grounds vehicle. You did receive information sent out from Manager Gerard in regards to the intended purchase of the Building and Grounds vehicle. He does have it parked out in the lot if anyone wanted to take a look at it earlier. His transmittal was dated May 19th. Apologize for not being in the packet, but final negotiation was just completed this morning. It only come up to their attention last Friday afternoon, and Manager Gerard, I'm giving you this to do with what you will.
Okay, thank you. As you know, in the 2014 budget, I had budgeted in the Building and Grounds Department for two items. One, I had $30,000 budgeted for a piece of equipment to maintain the ice rink and the pedestrian walkways, and then I had another $15,000 set aside to pick up a used full-size pickup truck with a plow for building and grounds use to maintain the various buildings and the recreational aspects that we have. We have not been successful in finding either piece of equipment that suited our needs, that was in reasonable condition, recognizing we were looking at used. Until last Friday, and this piece of equipment came up last Friday, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the things we've been talking with the road commission about is taking over the patching of some of the roads, potholes in the township, and actually this vehicle has much more utility than what the pickup truck and the other piece of equipment that we had. The price is very good, the mileage is very low. It's a 2005 model with only 22,000 miles on it. Local vendor. And I'm bringing it to the board for authorization tonight because it does exceed my authority to spend. It is within what I have in my budget.
Any questions or comments from the board? What's your pleasure, Ernie?
Looking at the amount of 19.5 and then looking at the picture, and they said 19.5 or best offer, and that, were we able to do any type of discussion with them?
That's not our picture. These are just ads that were out on the internet as comparable prices, but if you'll notice, is this one that's on here for 19.5 also has 44,000 miles on it, and it does not have the same equipment that we have. These are just comparables of the same year, same model as to what the pricing is, and from what I can tell, the price that we have for this particular truck is about $3,000 to $4,000 below market.
The other question I have, as far as parking it, will we be able to park it inside?
Eventually we will, yes.
Utilizing the...
Right now, we will have space in the new Public Works facility, but as we talked earlier, one of the things we have been talking about is some kind of a structure either at Lions Field or here on this site further to the north to provide housing for some of the equipment that we have, specifically for building and grounds.
'Cause I can't see purchasing a vehicle and then leaving it lay out like we have the other one, be able to put it inside somewhere to protect it, because that generates a long-term for it.
Yes, it does.
Who else? Dan, you got questions?
No.
Pete?
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of the truck.
Support.
Motion and support. Other board member comment or questions?
All the functions that you have listing here will be coming on the truck.
Correct.
Plows, everything.
I have the keys here if you want to take a look at it.
No.
It's right outside.
I need to take a look at it over the weekend.
That's what I kind of thought. The only thing that we do need to do to the truck is we're going to have, if the board approves the purchase, we are going to have the bed of the dump box rhino lined. So when we do the hot patch, it doesn't damage the truck at all.
I guess I have one question for you, Randy, and, you know, you had set aside two pieces of equipment, and you were thinking, you know, it was for the building and grounds, but we were talking about, will it be, you know, the equipment you were talking about, would we have a sweeper attachment, would we have a snow blower attachment, and, you know, you set aside $30,000 plus another $15,000, right, so $45,000, we're spending 20 of that roughly now. Do you still have in your mind for the additional equipment that we would still need from a snow blower standpoint for the ice rink or for the walkways or wherever else.
We will be still looking for a small tractor type of an implement that will have a snow blower attachment specifically for the ice rink and for the pathways at Lions Field that we project in the site plan as you've got here. There are pathways that are narrower pathways there.
And that does leave enough money, in your opinion, to accomplish.
It does.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, I believe, to give Manager Gerard the authority to move forward on the purchasing the truck for building and grounds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes.
That'll be 19,500 then, correct?
Correct.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed. This brings us
Yes,
up
we don't do any
to-
taxes or licensing. It just goes on our municipal plate.
Okay. This brings us up to second public comment. Those members of the public wishing to make a comment may do so at this time.
Kathy Peters again, 600 Brickyard. I've been working on the signage for the Heritage Trail, and we have a whole bunch to put up this summer. We haven't done one for Schwimwood Park yet, but the trail is just awesome. And it's been really a pleasure to work with the people we work with. So thank you for supporting that effort. Get
Thank
out
you.
on the trail.
Yeah. I will, now that there's snow off of it.
What a wussy.
Dave Carlson again, 1000 Norway, Marquette. On behalf of Peter White Library, I thank you as a board for your decision to move forward with the vote in the township to support Peter White Library. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Anyone else wish to address the board? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We'll move to additional comments from board members. Brevity is a virtue. Who wants to go?
You look at me all the time.
Ernie?
Okay, I attended a meeting put on by the Municipal Employees Retirement System last week on unfunded accrued liability. And the biggest part of that was filling out the form if you had revenue sharing, and we don't get revenue sharing. But a couple of things was of interest to me was the unfunded liability. And I started asking questions at the end to the young lady that was there. We do have a unfunded liability that we have to address every year, and that too. And going further in that, looking at the type of plans we have, and I think maybe it's something we need to look at in budget time. We have the defined benefit, and there's a defined contribution and the hybrid. And a number of them at the meeting were talking about this hybrid as to it, and they're talking about for new employees and that. So it's maybe something at our budget meetings to talk a little bit more on it and see in the future as to what this means as far as dollar-wise for the township as we move into the future and that too. So overall, it was very interesting. I came from the point I didn't know a lot about it, and but listening to the other managers and the other representatives from the other municipalities, they're all concerned with the unfunded liability all the way down the line. So it's something we need to look at as we move forward in that too. So that's it.
Thanks, Ernie. Anyone else? Pete?
Just to remind you, it's not very far off, June 7th, that's our National Trail Day. So it'd probably be, we could try and announce it again, but mark down on your calendars, June 7th. All right, thank you.
Jan?
Just wanted to also, like Clerk Rattari stated at the first board comment, I'd like to welcome Thomas Theater Group. I did also have gone there, and it is a extremely impressive theater.
Great. Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, a couple of dates coming up. We have the primary election coming up August. It's first Tuesday in August, so anyone not registered should be getting into the township before July 1st to make sure you're registered for that election. And if we're going to get a road millage, the board's going to have to move swiftly because July 29th, I believe, is the cutoff date for the November ballot. So if the road committee is listening, they should have a recommendation to us fairly soon if they want to go out for something, because we're going to have to get that legally reviewed and numbers put in there and give the voters enough time to look at that stuff. So I'm just putting you on notice that the time is crunching here. So if we're going to continue that millage we have to do something quick.
Thanks, Clerk Terry. Just a couple brief comments. First, I'd like to congratulate Lundin Mining Company and the City of Marquette on being able to come up with a workable solution to the dilemma they were facing. It wasn't that long ago that they were talking about stopping trucks from going through there, and everything would have been pushed out to the township. We had some very real concerns. I'm glad that we were all able to stay at the table and work through some of those areas and reach a solution that, at least for the short term, offers a viable route without disrupting regional truck traffic and standing on its head. Is it the best solution? I don't know. In my opinion, I think there's probably some better long-term solutions out there. I'm somewhat disappointed that we weren't able to move forward on the regional truck traffic study, and I hope that we can get back there. Lundin had initially agreed to fund that and then backed off because of their financial commitments to the City of Marquette, as well as exploring other viable options. I'm hoping that we can get back at the table and really develop a long-term commercial truck traffic routing for Marquette County. I think it would help all municipalities be able to plan better if we had a comprehensive look at it and we got more people involved rather than less. It can be easy for each municipality to develop their own solutions, but I think when we all work together, it comes up with better ideas and perhaps a more long-term solution. I'm hoping we can continue to move forward on that front. I'd also like to remind everybody that we're coming up to the end of the school year, and be cautious because the kids' heads as they're crossing the street may not necessarily be thinking about the traffic that's in front of them. So take your time, slow down, and let's all embrace a safe spring as we slide into hopefully summer any day now. That having been said, I would entertain one more motion this evening. That would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.